Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. You out there, we've got a busy day today on a day where that Sixer game last night is the game that we've seen over the years. That's the one we've seen over the years that make you say, oh, there's Sixers that I remember. Welcome back. I want to talk a little bit more about why that game last night might be more of an outlier, but I certainly can understand people who look at it as, hey, that's the game that makes me not want to get on board. The Sixers go out. They scored 45 points in the first quarter of the game last night, scored 36 points in the second half of the game. So what went wrong, we'll discuss. They'll play the Cavaliers tonight. Listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. I would imagine Joel Embiid does not play tonight on a back-to-back. Some people would say that's a good thing. I want to talk about Joel's role in that game last night and the big picture for Joel. Look, it's a big picture for Joel. This isn't a night-to-night, minute-to-minute, possession-by-possession thing when it comes to Joel Embiid. This is a big picture thing. And we need to figure out where Joel fits in the big picture of this team. Are they better off without him? Well, we're going to talk about that because there were people last night. Joel had a bad fourth quarter. He got re-entered into the game with about 5 minutes left to go. But we're going to get into that. I want to set up some other things for everybody out there. 99 bottles, got 4 more chances today to qualify. Q Myers, Josina Anderson is going to join us. She had some interesting information regarding the whole A.J. Brown thing. So we're going to talk to Josina Anderson, NFL reporter in the 5 o'clock hour. Michael Kasky-Blomain, host of Trust the Mikes podcast, and covers the Sixers for 97.3 ESPN. He's going to join us at 5 o'clock today. So we're jam-packed. We're busy. We want to get into as well. You can vote at Mike Gill Show. Vote at Mike Gill Show on the Twitter X platform. Question I have today. Wednesday is kind of like a midweek. A lot of NFL power polls usually come out. Which team worries you the most in the NFC? Now, I gave you 4 choices, but obviously there's more. Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. And then you can obviously enter in whoever you want. So far, and you guys can keep voting. We'll look at the results coming up a little bit later on in the hour. 50% went with one team. 30% have gone with another team. 15% went with the third team, and only 4% have gone with the last team that I gave you. We do have some write-in votes as well. 609-403-0973. Let us know which team worries you the most in the NFC. If you're putting the power poll together of NFC teams, are the Eagles at the top? And if so, who's number 2? Who is that team that worries you the most as we now hit the backstretch of this NFL schedule? So we'll dive into that a little bit later. Harrison Bader opted out of his deal. He had a mutual option for the Phillies. He has opted out. So Harrison Bader is now officially a former Philly. He is a free agent. What does that mean? We'll discuss that a little bit later. You can go on the website, 973ESPN.com, to read more about that whole situation. So he had a mutual option. In other words, the Phillies could say, we're going to accept your option. And then he would say, I also accept it. And then you mutually agree to that number, which was $10 million. Bader is saying, nope, I think I can get a multi-year deal for more money. So I'm going to opt out of the contract. And now he becomes a free agent. That means the Phillies can try to bring him back, but it's not going to be for the $10 million price tag that he is currently played for this past year. So do the Phillies want to bring Harrison Bader back? That's a tricky one for me. We can dive into that one. We'll talk to McGarry coming up in about 25 minutes. I do want to get into this Sixer game last night, which was a horrific loss if you're just saying, hey, overall, that team should have won that game last night. That was a terrible loss. They should have won that game last night. They're up 24 at one point. They were shooting the lights out, over 70% from three-point range in the first quarter. They scored 45 points. 45 points in the first quarter of that game. And yet they could not find a way to put that team away. Now, this has been something that has hampered this team over the years, not being able to finish teams, not being able to close games out. And we saw them do that early in the season. They got down, they came back, and then they held off Boston. They got down, they came back, took the lead, and then held off Charlotte. Orlando, same thing. Washington, same thing, where they were down, came back, and then had to hold off these teams and close games out. They've been doing that until last night. So what happened in the game last night? They went 0 for 13, I believe. It's either 0 for 11 or 0 for 13 down the stretch in the fourth quarter. Like when it mattered the most, they couldn't make a basket. So why? Let's look into this. By the way, according to some reports, Joel Embiid is out tonight. Paul George is out tonight. Jared McCain is also out tonight. And Dominic Barlow is out. So McCain, who played last night, is not playing tonight. He did not play very well last night. It was his first game back, but nothing really exciting about his minutes last night. But here's the thing. The final 6 minutes and 30 seconds of that game, the Sixers went 0 for 11 from the field. 0 for 11. So what happened here? I know a lot of people, and I think Embiid is part of this. I'm not absolving of Embiid here. But what I will say is Embiid left the game in the third quarter, and they were up 19. When Embiid finally came back into the game, that lead had been cut to 7. And if you were watching what was going on in that time frame, they couldn't score. They could not score. Now, they reinserted Joel with a 7-point game. There was about 5.5 minutes left in the game, and Joel was part of the problem as well. The ball got stagnant, a lot of two-man game. But I will say this. If you go watch the final 11 possessions of that game and just kind of look at it, they got good shots. They got good looks. They got good shots. Maxey just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I thought Maxey forced some things. You know, there's a possession with like a minute 30 left in the game. 31. There's a minute 31 left in the game. The Sixers are up 3. And instead of just pulling it back, you have a 3-point lead, a minute 30 left in the game. Instead of just like, and he doesn't have numbers, it's 1-on-4. And instead of just pulling it back and running clock and taking the game down to about a minute and then maybe trying to get a bucket, a better shot, Maxey just takes the ball right on 1-on-4. He goes out of control, throws up some cockamamie layup, and it doesn't go. The Bulls get the layup, and they get out running. Now it's a 1-point game. Okay, it's a 1-point game with 1:04 left. And Edgecombe gives the ball to Embiid. Embiid is 1-on-1, and he takes a shot that he takes all day, every day, all season long, and he just doesn't make it. And it doesn't go in. Bulls get the rebound. Now the Sixers, 30 seconds left. You still have a lead. There's an 11-second difference on the play clock. Maxey trying to kill clock here, right? He's calling for a clear out. He's just waving and waving and waving. And Maxey letting it clear out. He gets a screen from Quentin Grimes, and then he does a step-back 3 with 5 seconds still left on the shot clock, and he shoots an air ball. I mean, if anything, Maxey, take the ball to the basket and try to get yourself fouled. And then the Sixers are down 2 with 3 seconds left. They get a great play, great pin action from Joel. Quentin Grimes catches at the top of the key, shoots a wide-open 3. He doesn't make it. But they had a lot of good looks. I thought Maxey, though, played a lot of out of control. Listen, he had 39 points last night. He was brilliant in the first half of that game. But I know everybody wants to just go after Joel. They were up 19 when Joel left. When Joel came back in the game, They were only up 7. They were struggling to score without Joel. Now, you could say once he went back, he was terrible. I would agree there. He got a lot of good looks. He just didn't make them. So we go back through that. Joel left the game, I want to say, let me bring it back up here. I looked at this last night. I wrote it in my notes today, Josh. My mind is all over the place from the Flyers game last night and everything else that was going on, and obviously today. So Joel last night left the game in the third quarter, right? It was the third quarter of the game. How much time? I think it was like at the 5:22 mark of the third quarter last night. Where did I write this down here? Right. Oh, here we go. So Joel last night. Yeah, let's see. Sorry about that. I have it in my, here we go. He left the game. They were up 19 with 5:22 left in the third. They're up 19. He didn't come back in the game until there was 5 minutes and 39 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So he didn't play the final 5 minutes of the third and didn't play the first 7 minutes of the fourth. So somehow Embiid is catching strays for them going up 19 and then the lead dwindling down to 7. They had no offense with him on the floor. So people keep talking about, well, he slows the game down. Everything slows down. They weren't scoring without him. Now, when he went back out there, you could certainly say he did not shoot the ball well. And I don't particularly like how they used him. Look, they're not posting him up at all. It just seeming like, hey, right now, in this early stage of the season, stay healthy. You're kind of a glorified jump shooter right now. And that's a role that he can play pretty well. He can make the free throw, the elbow jumper, all that stuff. It's a foreign part of his game. Well, then all of a sudden last night when push came to shove, it's like, hey, Joel, you haven't done this all year, but get your ass down on the block and start going one-on-one and trying to get your, like, it was a weird dynamic that all of a sudden they decided, let's just totally go to this two-man game. Instead of doing what this team has done really well, the problem was without Joel, for that stretch, they weren't scoring. When he left the game in the third quarter with 5:39 left in the third, right? He leaves the game with 5:22 left in the third. It's 89-70. So they had 89 points when he left the game. Well, he doesn't come back into the game until the fourth quarter with 5:39, I think is when he ended up coming back into the game. Yes, 5:39. So when the time that he was gone, they scored 20 points, but Chicago had scored 30. So with Embiid off the floor last night, they let a 19-point lead go down to 7. They scored 20 points in that time frame and gave up 30. I think my math is right on the 30 points they gave up. Well, I don't remember what the score was. It was 89-70, so it was a 19-point game, 89-70. So 70 points when he left. And what did I say when he came back?
Well, when Embiid came back into the game, it was 109-102.
109-102.
So the Chicago Bulls scored 32
points when he was off the floor.
Right. And the Sixers only scored 20.
Yeah. So the plus minus without him was
minus 12.
Exactly. Now, that being said, so people are complaining about Embiid last night. They were up 19 when he left. It was a 7-point game when he got back. Now, when Embiid got back out there, I could say he did not play well. He missed a 9-footer, but that's a shot that he takes all the time. It's not like, he turned the ball over. He had the one play. He missed another 9-footer. If Joel Embiid's taking 9-foot jumpers, that's money in the bank. He had the turnover, with 2.5 minutes left in the game. Then he missed a terrible step back 3. That possession was terrible. He shoots a step back fall away 3 with 4 seconds still left on the shot clock. He missed a 14-foot jumper. That's a shot that Joel Embiid takes. I mean, really, he just couldn't get one to fall last night. So I'm not looking at it and say, like, did he play well? No. He just couldn't make a shot. So if he makes these shots, did he play well? Like, it's a make or miss situation here, right? My big thing was he left the game. They're up 19.
Mike, I want to reframe it this way. People have been saying now for 2 weeks, this team needs to be built around the young guys. People keep saying online, on the text board, buddies in on my texts, all saying the same thing. This team is Maxey and Edgecombe. Well, Maxey and Edgecombe, it was their game, and they couldn't hold the lead. And so now people want to blame Embiid when you were telling me for weeks this is not Embiid's team anymore. So which is it? Is Embiid the problem, or is it not the problem? And I feel like people keep wanting to move the narrative because it's like people love Maxey and VJ so much. They're afraid to say anything negative about them.
Well, I'll tell you this. They play again tonight, and they're playing a good Cleveland team.
Very good Cleveland team.
You're on the back-to-back.
Darius Garland's back tonight.
Yes, Garland's back tonight too. You're on the back-to-back. Maxey played 39 minutes last night. Edgecombe played 38 minutes. And you're wondering in the second half of that game, Maxey came out and had maybe the best start of the game that he's ever had in his life. But on the back end of that game, you're starting to wonder, are all these minutes starting to catch up to Maxey and Edgecombe, a rookie, and now they got to play again tonight. And then, by the way, they have a back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday this weekend.
Yeah, I don't understand who made this schedule, but they obviously hate the Sixers.
McCain only played 15 minutes last night. He had no impact at all. He was 0 for 4 from the field, 0 for 2.
Should he have even been out there?
I don't mind if he's cleared. You got to get into game shape and start playing a little bit. So It's fine to play 15 minutes, get your legs going. Look, he has not played since he got hurt in December last year.
Right. It's been almost 12 months.
So he has not played in almost a full calendar year, and then he hurts the thumb. So just when he's coming back from the knee, he hurts the thumb. So, yes, he's been doing some running around and stuff, I'm sure, post-knee operation, but he has not played live games. This is going to take a little while for McCain to find his spot, but they need McCain to take some of those minutes away from Maxey and Edgecombe. You can't keep playing these guys 40 minutes a game. Now, Grimes played 30 last night, and he didn't shoot the ball well. On a night where everybody was making everything, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He was 0 for 5 from three-point range last night. So, overall, it's a frustrating loss, but I think the big question is, you're up 19 when Embiid left the game last night, and when he came back, it was only a 7-point game.
Right.
Embiid ended up as a +1 last night. Bona was a -3. They did not play Drummond. Now, you could ask the question, why not Drummond? Why didn't he get a run last night? Maybe he could have got a big rebound in a moment and just kind of settled that game down.
Well, the problem is people like me have been asking for more Bona. I got more Bona. It didn't work out. So
that's a tough matchup for Bona, I think, because Vucevic is a more physical center.
He's also very crafty.
And yes,
he's very good at manipulating you into fouling him. Like that one Embiid foul in the fourth quarter, like people were getting mad I saw on X, and I had to put my phone down. Like, people were like, I can't believe Embiid fouled him. I'm like, Vucevic's been doing this for a decade. Like,
how many people
just really good at like getting under people and putting up the shot?
How many people remember Vucevic playing for the Sixers?
Nobody.
Like, it's almost like anybody listening remember that Nikolai Vucevic played for the Sixers at one point?
It's like, did he?
Do you know how many people out there remember Vucevic played for the Sixers? Who did the Sixers receive in the trade involving Vucevic?
I think I know this answer.
You should.
Can I guess?
How many people out there remember Vucevic got traded? He was on the Sixers. Vucevic got drafted by the Sixers. He was a first-round pick. How many people know Vucevic got traded somewhere? Who did he get traded for? Who was in the trade? It was kind of a weird 3-team deal.
Can I guess?
Hold on a second. Let me see if the text board has any answers.
Right,
609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Vucevic traded from the Sixers. Went to Orlando. Trade in with the Sixers received who? Does anybody know that?
I think I know, but I don't want to give it away yet.
609-403-0973. All right, we got a busy show today. I do have some text messages Who is the biggest threat to the Eagles in the NFC? Lions, Packers, Rams,
Oh my.
somebody else? Niners, Buccaneers. Who you got? Let us know on the text board 609-403-0973. Vote at Mike Gill Show on the X platform. Right now, let's see. We'll update the poll question. Ooh, big movement in the last. One team went from 50% down to 45%. The other team was up to 30. The other team's up to 20. The other team's at 5. They got some right info. This guy voted for 2 in the right info. Follow the rules. You only get one. Which team is the biggest threat? Which team worries you the most in the NFC? Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, maybe the Bucs, 49ers, or someone else?
I feel like the guy who wrote in the 2 votes is the guy who goes to the ballot box and goes to anyone with his friends.
All right, coming up, we've got McGarry. What's going to happen with Harrison Bader? Should the Phillies bring him back? Hugh Myers for our weekly spin around the NFL. Moshe Football at 4. MKB tonight. Josina Anderson. It's all on a Wednesday edition of Sports Back. All right, 228 Sports Bash. Mike Gary. He is plumbing, heating, and air conditioning. Serving South Jersey since 1911, keeping your home comfort game day ready this season. A lot to dive into with Mike as a Sixer loss last night that was very reminiscent of losses of the past. Big lead, can't hold it, can't finish, and then everybody wants to blame everybody. We'll get into that. Plus, Harrison Bader has opted out. Where do the Phillies go to fix their center field problem? They had the same problem last year. They right back to square one. Let's start there. Mike Gary from the Press of Atlantic City, Press of AC.com. Bader, I think it was probably assumed that he was going to opt out, Mike, of this mutual option. He did. So now what? They needed a center fielder all last year. They went out and got a center fielder. And now that center fielder is gone.
Yeah, good question, right? No doubt that he's going to opt out after a career season. So right now the Phillies have a void in center field, just as they did when they acquired Harrison Bader. To me, I am going to try to bring Harrison Bader back. However, I am going to be cautious, as we have talked in the past, about signing a guy off a career year. Harrison Bader had the best season of his career since 2021 last year. It was arguably the best season he's ever had, and I'm a bit concerned about signing guys, especially the 2, 3, 4-year deals when they're coming off their best season. But again, there is a problem in center field. The Phillies had one last year, and Harrison Bader solved it temporarily, but kind of right back where they started again right now.
They got to have you over the barrel here, right? I mean, like, you need a center fielder. Justin Crawford, most people believe he should play left field. You really don't have a center fielder. So is the best, way to fix this is just bring Bader back and maybe overpay him. But, the big question with Bader is, did you get the best of him in this little flash in the pan why he is going to be a free agent? Because it's not like Bader has a small sample size, Mike, of Major League time.
No.
He has bounced all over the place, and nobody has seemed to want to keep him.
Yeah, you're right. There's a reason why the guy has been on 4 or 5 teams, and I've seen him play for the New York Yankees. I've seen him play for the New York Mets. He did not hit the ball the way he hit the ball last year. And again, I think the Phillies might have to get a little creative here. I know they say that Crawford is a natural left fielder. He's better in left field than center. But his offensive game projects better to center field because he's more of a guy who hits for average and get on base guy. Usually when you think of left and right field, the corner outfield positions, you're thinking of power guys. Crawford's offensive profile fits, center field. He's 21, 22 years old. Maybe you put him in center field with Johan Rojas as a backup and say, hey, can this kid learn how to play center field on the fly? And that opens up left field for Brandon Marsh, a Brandon Marsh platoon with a right-handed bat, and then you go get a right fielder. But I'm just, I would be cautious about thinking that Harrison Bader was the answer based only off last season. If I could get Harrison Bader for one more year, or maybe 1 year an option, I'd do that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. But is the year that Harrison Bader had last year going to get him a 2, 3, 4-year contract? That's the question.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot there because they do need a center fielder, and they don't really, outside if you want to play Crawford there, he's also a left-handed bat. You back down the same road where you're platooning in the outfield corners. Though if you bring Bader back, you have center field kind of locked down, whether he hits 270 again or he's at 240. At least you have a good center field defensive player. And then you have Crawford at left. You see Marsh going over to right field and platooning with somebody over there.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think that gives you, if you do bring Bader back and you throw an outfield out there, and Marsh would be on the long side of the platoon, right, as a left-hander, so he's going to get more at-bats because there's more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. That's a pretty good defensive outfield. By all accounts, Crawford is pretty good in left field. We saw what Bader can do in center field. He's a professional center fielder, and Marsh is a pretty good corner outfielder himself. So you've got a good defensive outfielder. I could live with that. I just think, you don't want to pay Harrison Bader, or maybe you do. Do you go that extra year for him? And like you said, do you kind of have that expression of saying, well, if he hits as well as he did last year, that's great. But if he hits 240, 250 and hits like 15 home runs, we'll live with that too, because he can play the defense in center field. So it's an interesting dilemma. And it's a dilemma that a lot of teams in baseball have, Mike, because it's just not, it's almost inconceivable to me, because you grow up in an era, you go back to the 70s, it seemed like every team had a stud center fielder. Like, center fielders just don't exist anymore in today's game.
Well, and he's a good one defensively, and you've gone through the Rojas thing where you had the defensive center fielder who really couldn't hit. Does it behoove you just to say, you know what, even if Bader isn't as much offensively, does it make sense just to bring him back? I think that will be a big storyline here, but it's not a fait accompli that they're just going to bring Harrison Bader back. So we'll see what ends up happening there. The Phillies offseason, that all starts in just a couple of days here, 5 days after the completion of the World Series. These players are now going to start opting out. Then free agency begins. But baseball is interesting, Mike, because sometimes these big stars, they don't sign. We saw Bryce Harper didn't sign until spring training in 2019.
Yeah.
So you wonder how long this Schwarber, how long some of these decisions are going to take for the Phillies to figure out what they want to do here.
Yeah, it's one of the big problems, I think. Look, baseball is on a roll right now, right? I think the invention of the pitch clock might be the single greatest invention, single greatest rule change in sports in my lifetime. It transformed baseball from like a 3.5 hour, 4 hour, torturous experience to watch, to an experience where the game lasts 2.5 hours. It moves with pace. They just come off, the Los Angeles Dodgers back-to-back. They just had a great World Series featuring two of the best World Series games I've ever seen. And Shohei Ohtani, you've got arguably the biggest sports star on the planet playing in your sport. So a lot of things are going baseball's way. And one thing they have to fix is this offseason. You look at the NBA and the stars sign over that 4 or 5 day period. Same thing with the NFL. This situation, and it's mainly Scott Boras' client. So watch when Ranger Suarez signs. This situation where the free agency plays out until February or March is ridiculous. Baseball has got to kind of fix that and give themselves a true hot stove week. Imagine if everybody had a sign right before Thanksgiving or the week before Thanksgiving, and then everybody signed, and you've got Christmas to go out and buy jerseys, and January to get ready for spring training.
That's
so
a good point.
I think that's the one thing baseball needs to fix is this offseason.
Good point is, get guys on new teams by Christmas so you can buy jerseys. That would be a way to make some more money for these teams out there. That's not a bad idea, Mike. I'm going to write that down and possibly throw that out there.
I give them away for free, so you can take that one. You can have that one on your own. I'll have 30 more today, so there you go.
All right, Sixers last night. Obviously, vibes were good, 5-1. You're up by 24. And it feels like we've seen this game before. It almost is like they reverted back to the Sixers that we saw, from the Brett Brown and Doc Rivers years, where you're up by 20 and then they just could not find a way to close that game out. It felt very much like that. How did you see that game last night, and what are some interesting signs about that game, big picture?
Yeah, fascinating game. And I think the first thing that you said there is 100% right. When I saw the last 3 minutes, I said, this is how they've lost every big playoff game that they've had in the Embiid era. Just an inability to get quality shots, good shots in the final 3 minutes of the game. So when you say it was a reminder of past defeats, I agree 110%, because their weakness throughout this whole Embiid era has been a guy who can create shots for himself and his teammates in the final 3 minutes of a game. And they could not do that last night. I thought last night's game was also fascinating because for the first time all season long, they were closing out with Embiid. I believe he was out there in the final 3-4 minutes for the first time. So I was curious to see what he looked like. I thought defensively, Embiid looked outstanding. I mean, that block he made, I think about 2 minutes to go, a bull went down the lane and Embiid came from off the ball to block the shot, was outstanding. But I thought their offensive possessions in the final couple of minutes really lacked. What was Embiid? 0 for 5 in the fourth quarter, I think. Maxey didn't shoot the ball well. And I thought the Maxey possession where they kind of sent Embiid to the corner and let Maxey go to work in a pick and roll, I think the score was 111-110. He ended up forcing a 3-point air ball, was just a disastrous possession there. So, yeah, those things have to be fixed. Can they be fixed going forward? Well, it's been a challenge for this team throughout the whole entire Embiid era. But last night was kind of a flashback to Atlanta Hawks Game 7, Miami Heat Game 6, Boston Celtics Game 7. It was just a regular season game in November. I get that. But that's been the Sixers' weakness throughout this entire run is scoring in crunch time.
Yeah, I went back and watched the last 11 possessions that they had. I think Erin Grugan posted it. She has a good post from Liberty Ballers. And those 11 possessions, Embiid's taking normal shots that he normally would take, 9-foot jumpers, It wasn't. He just couldn't make one. I thought Maxey was out of control, bad shot selection. He gets a rebound with 1:31 left in the game. He goes 1-on-4, throws up a layup. It doesn't go. Instead of just stopping, slowing it down, let the clock run. And I thought Maxey took some really bad shots. It's hard to blame him. I mean, he had 39. I just wonder if he's playing too many minutes right now early. Now you have a back-to-back tonight. They played 39 minutes last night, those guards. So I think early on, the Embiid stuff is what it is. He just got good shots. They didn't fall. But I will say this, Mike. People are complaining about Embiid, and I said, okay, I'll play along. He left the game last night. They're up 19 with about 5:20 left in the third quarter. He didn't come back in the game until there was 5:39 left in the fourth. That lead went from 19 to 7 because they couldn't score and they couldn't defend. In the time he was out, they lost 32-20. Now they put him back in. The thing I thought was weird was all of a sudden they tried to post him up like they used to in the past, like out of nowhere. He hasn't done that all year, and now it's like, hey, big fella, try to win this game for us.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting, but it has to, I'll give him a little bit of a pass again, because you just said he hasn't done this all year. Now he's got to go out there and try to do it. Yeah, and obviously you're going to want to see him try to do it because you just pointed it out. If the Sixers are going to go anywhere, Embiid is going to be on the court in the final minutes of a game. He is not going to be play 25 minutes and then go sit the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game. That might have been a recipe for success for the first 2 or 3 games of this season against bad teams, but that is not a recipe for success, long-term success. I will say this. I come away more encouraged about the way Embiid played. Just that defensive play that he made, that block he made, Mike, with about 2 minutes to go in the game, might have been 3 minutes to go, but I think it was about 2 minutes to go in the game, was the most athletic play I've seen Joel Embiid make in about a year and a half. So the fact that he could make that play gives me some confidence going forward. And let's not forget, hey, Paul George is going to be, he's almost a forgotten guy right now. He's going to be healthy, I assume, at some point. He's going to be out there, I assume, at some point. Does he come in and take pressure off of Maxey and Edgecombe and Embiid in the final minutes of the game? Would that game have been different last night if you can throw the ball to Paul George on the wing for a possession or two and let him try to create a shot and score? I kind of believe it would be. So, what I've seen from the Sixers so far, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged by how athletic Embiid looked last night. Yeah, were they worn down? Did the Bulls just have the momentum? Yeah. Did Giddey make some plays? Yeah. So obviously some warning signs from last night's game, but I think some things for the Sixers to be encouraged about also coming out of last night.
Yep. There's a lot there on the Paul George. I do agree that, I think that guy they have out there right now, he's more of a role player, facilitator. You put Paul George out there. I think getting McCain into the rhythm so he can cut into those Maxey Edgecombe minutes. He only played 15 minutes. He didn't really have much of a role last night, but I think that will help them as well. I think the team's a lot deeper than they've been, but, obviously that was a loss last night. that if you're the anti-Sixer guy out there, you have every right to be like, that's the game. That's the one right there. So we'll see how it all unfolds. We got so much happening now. The Eagles getting ready for the Packers. Mike, we got the poll question up. I'll ask you, at Mike Gill Show, the poll question, which team in the NFC should be the biggest worry for the Eagles? The votings, it's Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, but it could be any team. Which NFC team is the biggest worry to Philadelphia?
I'm going to go with the Seahawks, Mike. I think the Seahawks have been impressive. I think defensively they are outstanding. I think that Sam Darnold, now, again, he was great for 16 games last year, and then he went south in a hurry in the last game of the regular season in the playoffs. But he is kind of putting together his second back-to-back outstanding regular season. I like their defense. I think Seattle is a tough place to go play. It's a long flight no matter where you're going. It's always loud there. It always seems when you watch the game, the sun is never out. It's dark. It's loud. It's tough on visiting teams. I like their defense and the quarterback guy and their skill guys too. I think the Seattle Seahawks, to me, are a team to keep an eye on.
All right. Well, they are one of the teams that you could vote for at Mike Gill Show. Head over there and vote. Let us know. By the way, Mike McGarry, last night we saw Nick Vucevic was drafted by the Sixers. Do we remember what trade he was a part of when the Sixers traded him away?
Did they trade him to Orlando?
He got traded to Orlando.
All right. I'm going to take a wild guess here. Could have been Jason Richardson coming back, or?
He was in that deal, but the main guy in the deal that came back to Philadelphia was Andrew Bynum.
Okay.
It was
right.
A 3-team deal with Iguodala.
Right, so he was in that deal. Okay.
Yes, he was. And everybody said, Vucevic. Because if you remember, Doug Collins was the coach and just never played the guy. So when you traded him away, here we are how many years later, and Vucevic is a very good contributor in this league.
And Mike, that brings up a great point, because I always, not to rehash the process or whatever, stuff like that, but what if the Sixers had kept Drew Holiday and Vucevic and tried to build with those two guys? I mean, it's a legitimate question of which way, kind of roads the path not taken, basically. If they had kept those young guys, not made the Bynum trade. Of course, the Bynum trade is kind of what gave life to the process, because he never played. They bombed out, and Sam Hinkie came in, and the process was born. But interesting to see what would have happened if they kept Vucevic and Holiday and tried to build with those two guys, because both those guys have gone on to have winning NBA careers. Holiday, even more so.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Check out all of his coverage of the high school football playoffs that are going on. And, of course, he'll be back on Friday. We'll talk Eagles, Packers, and the NFL weekend. Sixers on a back-to-back tonight. They also have a back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday, so somebody really didn't like them in the early part of the season. Michael, take care, bud.
All right, we'll see you down the road, Mike. Take care.
All right, Mike McGarry, everybody, from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, is live on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. There you go. That was Bynum was involved. It was a 3-team deal that kind of had a bunch of different moving parts.
It was more than 3 teams, because Iguodala went to Denver. Dwight Howard went to the Lakers. Bynum went to the Sixers. But also in the deal, he mentioned Jason Richardson. But there's one more part of that trade the Sixers got. The Sixers got the draft pick that turned into Dario Saric.
So Saric was the pick they got from Orlando?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they made a couple deals with I thought they made the deal with Orlando on draft night.
There's also a separate deal that involved Alfred Payton.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was on draft night. They made that deal on draft night because they knew the Magic wanted Payton, so they drafted Payton.
Right.
And then traded him.
Flipped him.
So I thought that was a separate part of the Bynum deal.
Yeah, there was like 5 teams involved in that on that trade. It's like ridiculous. Like if you go back and try to read through the trade, you'll like lose your mind.
By the way, it's one of my favorite days of the year. Phillies spring training schedule has been announced. It all begins for the Phillies, the 2026 season, with the first game on February the 21st. Yes, February 21st is when the Phillies are back. They take on the American League champion Blue Jays in Dunedin. You can check out more coming up on our website, 97.3ESPN.com. 52, 99 bottles opportunity coming up this hour. Also, next hour, Q Myers at 3:30. We'll go around the NFL with him. And when we come back, we're going to update the poll question. Which team in the NFC is the biggest threat to Philadelphia? Which team worries you the most? You can vote at Mike Gill Show. Right now, the poll question, we'll update it for you in terms of the teams that are involved. It keeps moving around here. One of the teams, the leader's at 41. Second place team is 29. The third place team is 23, and the last place team is 6. Which team do you think is in last right now?
Oh boy.
Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks.
I mean, I would assume in the last place is the Seahawks.
Do you think the team that Eagles fans are the least worried about is the Seahawks?
I mean, I could be wrong. My pick was not on the leader, so I knew that.
Well, the leaders are one of the teams mentioned.
No. The team that I picked, I know is not a leader.
Well, they're the
But
4
I also
teams.
voted a while ago.
They're the 4 teams. Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. Are they the top 4? Are they even the top 4? Maybe Bucs, maybe Niners, somebody else. Or do you say those 4 are the 4?
I think if you actually say the Bucs, they go in the fifth option.
Well, they were the 5th option, and the Niners are in there as another option as well. You can write those in if you want, but you can only allow people to vote for 4. That's all the Twitter X platform gives you. So, well, the 4 that I listed, the top 4,
I think so.
Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks.
The thing is wrong with the Bucs is they're so injured right now. Who knows what it's going to be by the time we get to June.
All right, coming up, we've got Q Myers next hour from Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Unsportsmanlike moment of the day. Mosher has football at 4. MKB tonight at 5 o'clock. Talked a little bit about that Sixer meltdown last night. We're going to get more to that because Tim Legler posted something that I thought was a very interesting thought on the X platform. We'll talk about that coming up as well. It's all here on the Sports Back. Right now, I need caller number 7, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Caller number 7 right now. You are entered for this year's 99 Bottles Party at Maynard's and Margate. You must be present to win on November 26th, Wednesday before Thanksgiving at this year's 99 Bottles Party. We have tons of tickets, 99 pairs of tickets, 99 qualifiers, 99 winners. Yes, 99 winners. Eagles tickets, club box seats, Eagles Commanders, Flyers tickets, Sixers tickets, concert tickets, and more. Caller 7 right now. Good luck. All right, 3 o'clock. Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. Got a qualifier from Dennis. Ethan in Dennis Township. We'll see you at the 99 Bottles Party, Ethan. Wednesday, November 26th. You got a shot to win Eagles tickets, Flyers tickets, Sixers tickets, and more. All thanks to our friends at Maynard's and Margate. My poll question is up at at Mike Gill Show at 973 ESPN. You can vote, be a part of it. Let's update the poll question. Sorry, trying to get the poll question up in front of me here. All right, Josh. These are the poll questions. Eagles fans, which team worries you the most in the NFC? Your choices are Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. The numbers keep moving all over the place here.
Yeah, I'm having trouble keeping up because it was one number when I voted earlier today, and that's a completely different number now. So I don't know. I guess the moment you came on the radio, Mike, we changed all the voters.
All right, let's update them. So 39%. Which team worries you the most in the NFC right now? 39% say who?
I mean, my working theory is that most people are probably going to pick the team that they think is the best team.
Generally how this works.
Well, no, it doesn't, because to me, there are other factors to win who are the best team, the style they play. But the best team right now on the list is the Rams.
All right, Rams. 39% are worried the most about the Rams. That is correct.
Now, again, I said styles make fights.
But I would think the Rams are a good choice, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because they have almost beat you in the NFC divisional game. They almost came here and beat you again and probably outplayed you. You going to beat them 3 times in a row now? Or does the Rams think that we should have won that last game and we're right there with you? You're not as big and bad as you thought.
Well, considering Sean McVay can't beat the Eagles in pretty much his entire tenure, then, being close is not good enough. Listen, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. Being close is not enough. Guess what? Michael Jordan got close to the Pistons multiple times. They had to fire Doug Collins and get Phil Jackson in there.
I get it. I'm just saying. They're right there. They've played you tough a handful of times. Do you think hey, we're just going to keep beating this team? Or is it one of these times
we own the psychological
they're going
edge
to finally – I don't know that you get the psychological edge. I think this one, they feel they outplayed you, and you snuck away with a blocked field goal. You ain't getting that again, I would imagine. So I think the psychological edge might be turning to the Rams by thinking, we're better than this team. We're better than this team.
Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see. All right. Number 2 on the list of which team worries you the most in the NFC. At Mike Gill Show, you can vote. Which team do you think is on the list? Number 2.
So I'm going to think number 2 is the team that I voted for. And that's the Detroit Lions.
Detroit.
I voted for Detroit because they're the one team that I haven't seen the Eagles beat consistently in a while.
That would be the team that I would vote for as probably number 1, the Lions. They are not number 2 on this list, though.
Okay. See, to me, the Lions are a style problem because I think that their style of play, which is a very strong run game, calibrated with a play action game, might be the one weakness that concerns me most with the Eagles right now. Now, that could change. I don't know how Phillips and all these other guys are going to implement into the defense, but I do think Philadelphia has been vulnerable to the run this year.
They've been vulnerable to the run. I think they've got very good weapons. I would have voted for the Lions as probably the team that worries me the most. That being said, they did not make the list as number 2 from our listeners today. Number 2 on the list is the Seahawks.
Interesting.
30% right now think the Seahawks worries them the most after the Rams.
So I'm wondering how much of that is people remembering that the Eagles seem to always lose in Seattle. Maybe is that part of it?
I think that that's a team that I'm surprised that the voters went that direction. Because it's a team that Didn't have a lot of buzz coming into the year. The Sam Darnold's the quarterback. I think one of the reasons last year why people didn't believe in the Vikings
yeah.
is because Sam Darnold was the quarterback. Now all of a sudden they're changing and saying, hey, I believe in this team. So I'm a little surprised by that. That being said, I think you got to start taking the Seahawks a little bit more seriously.
I agree. You got to take them seriously, but they are a team that I think stylistically is not a problem for Philadelphia, because historically the reason why Seattle used to beat you all the time was because of Russell Wilson. You used to go to the Legion of Boom out there in Seattle, the loud noise, the defense. It was a bad matchup for you. I think Philadelphia does not have as much of a matchup issue because Seattle's strengths are things that you're good at, and their weaknesses are things that you take advantage of very well. They do not have a great pass defense. They have a very good front defense, but you can take advantage of their safeties and their corners. And then I look at their offense is very pass heavy. They don't use Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet as much as they should.
Well, they got good weapons, and they just added Rashid Shaheed as well to their passing game, and he's a good weapon. Shaheed's a good weapon. The Saints just didn't have a means to use him.
Saints just dumpster fire. They needed to let him go.
Which team worries you the most in the NFC? Number 3.
I mean, it's got to be the Lions, right?
Lions, 24%. Number 3 on the list. And the Packers, 5.6% is in the last place slot of which teams worry you the most in the NFC. Buccaneers, Niners, they're on the list as well in terms of you couldn't vote for them, but you could write them in if you want to. Got a couple people. One guy says Rams and Tampa. You only get one vote there. Somebody else said none of the above. Thanks for listing the team. None of the above, but you don't list a team. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks for nothing.
How about just saying none of these teams? What about this one?
Right.
I don't know what other team you would even put. If it's none of the above of Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Buccaneers, Niners, or someone else, is there another team I'm missing?
I mean, is there any worry if the Bears going to run?
I do think the Bears are scary in that Black Friday game, and I'll tell you why. If they continue to ascend offensively in this Ben Johnson system.
Right.
In other words, I'm not a big Caleb Williams guy, never really have been, but I understand he has talent.
And you understand that the coach is making a difference.
He's making a difference. But what I would say is this offense getting more comfortable to by the time they get to Black Friday, they're really clicking on all cylinders. Like, remember, they're all learning a new offense over there.
Correct.
And they're only 9 weeks into the season. You would think that they're still growing in that offense. So I think that Chicago, I wouldn't put them as the team that worries me the most. But I definitely think they're a team that you shouldn't take for granted when you play them coming up on Black Friday in a couple weeks.
And I will also say that I thought one of the big moments for them this season was they've lost 2 of their weapons, and they found a way to slide guys right in. You know, Cole Kmet goes down, Colton Loveland, he just slides right in like he's always been the number 1 tight end. They lose DeAndre Swift, and Monangae, he just slides in, and he's just like, I'll do the job. So the fact that they have guys who can slide right in the roles and still be impactful, I think is a big deal for a team like that.
By the way, right now, those are the teams you can vote for at Mike Gill Show. You can text in 609-403-0973. We'll update that poll question throughout the show there. Which team worries you the most in the NFC? The Rams right now, our listeners are most worried about the Rams. Second, the Seahawks. Third, the Lions. And then the Packers. Now, the Eagles play the Packers this week. Does this kind of say that the Eagles, who, by the way, Green Bay's a 2.5-point favorite in this game. That, to me, is a Packer line.
You know, the Eagles have won 5 straight games they have been underdogs in?
Did not know that.
Now you do.
Makes a little bit of sense, though. They just beat everybody, so like in the last 2 years. But this is a Packer line to me because Green Bay loses to Carolina, and now everybody's down on them. And then they're a slight favorite in the game. They're almost begging you to say, I got to take Philadelphia. 2.5. They just lost to Carolina. And then you go and throw your hard-earned money on the Philadelphia Eagles, and then something happens. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen. We'll talk about that throughout the rest of the week here. But that's a Packer line to me, that they're dying for people to bet on Philadelphia, and they're hoping that Green Bay bounces back in this one.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a manipulative line by the odds makers, but listen, that loss to Carolina raised a lot of red flags. And you're talking about a team without their best receiver now, Tucker Kraft, for the rest of the year. By the way, did you hear what Romeo Dobbs said about Tucker Kraft?
Dobbs, I saw, said something weird.
Yeah, he said that he's in a better place now. He doesn't want to talk anymore about it. Like, he made it sound like he died.
I did see. That's what I saw. Yeah, I did see that.
Like, yo, Romeo, like, he's not dead. He's just injured.
Guys, if Jalen Phillips doesn't pan out and we don't get a pass rush soon, then I'd say the Rams. Detroit is a scary run game, so I say a tie. So he's saying if they don't get more pass rush, that the Rams would worry him the most. Phil and Brigantine. Mike, Green Bay, no way. Love is erratic. Just lost Kraft. Lions, talent enough but not sold. Seahawks, Darnold in the playoffs, show me something. Leaves the Rams and Bucs home field over both if it comes out that way. History says Eagles have the Rams number, barely leaving the Bucs and Bulls team as the team to fear the most. That's a great breakdown by Phil and Brigantine. How he kind of wandered his way through every single team, leaving it to Tampa Bay. Now, the Eagles have had all these games against Tampa, seemingly have all been in Tampa. I don't remember the last time Tampa had to come up here and play.
In the playoffs or just regular season?
When was the last time that Philly played Tampa in Philly?
I think let me look it up. I think I know what year, but
I mean, the one year in 2022, they played them in the wild card game. That game was down there. They played them in the wild card game in 2021. In 2023, the year they started 10-1 and then fell apart. They fell apart and they played the wild card game. That game was in Tampa.
So the game they played 2021 in Philadelphia and they lost 28-22. Then later that year they played in Tampa and they lost again.
Because the Eagles won the division that year at like 9-8. So they got a home game in the wild card. Is that what that was?
No. The regular season game was in Philadelphia in 2021.
Oh, okay. And then they played him in the wild card game.
In the wild card in Tampa.
And they got blasted.
So
the last time they played Tampa in Philly was 2021?
It looks like it. They lost 28-22.
Yeah, so it feels like they've been
That was the second to last game Sirianni had to play calling.
That's right. Now, it seems like ever since that game, they must have played the Bucs like 5 times, and they've all been in Tampa.
Yeah, because remember, you had the primetime game in Tampa, you had the playoff games in Tampa. Yeah, no fun. Tampa. Boo.
No, you have not had good luck down there. Now, you did beat them this year.
Yes.
You beat them down there last year during the regular season.
Right.
That was one of your more complete games. It was like 22-9 or something weird like that.
Yeah, that was a primetime game a couple years ago.
So Phil's kind of expository there is correct that all those teams do have something. Hence the question of which team worries you the most. I guess it comes down to, see, I would look at it like this. Okay, let me go through the 4 teams real quick. The Lions, to me, they have very good weapons. They've got 2 good running backs. They've got a good offensive line. They've got 2 good weapons in the pass game. They got to use Jameson Williams a little bit better.
Laporte is basically the number 2 receiver at this point.
And obviously, Goff knows that offense well.
Very well.
They have a new coordinator. That hasn't seemed to hold them back.
It held them back for 1 game, basically.
That's it.
Well, 2 games, but basically.
That happens over the course of a 17-game season, 18 weeks. You're going to have weeks where your offense just doesn't play well. Yeah. But it's not like they consistently every week.
No.
You're not saying, oh, my God, they look so different without Ben Johnson. Their offense has been fine. Their defense, they're healthier. Now, they had some health issues 2 weeks ago, and they look great in that game on, was that Monday night?
Yeah, Rock Ya-Sin showed up.
So I think the Lions, if they're healthy, this is what I thought about the Lions, why I like the Lions. They, last year, were the number 1 seed, had a great year, and then all the injuries just caught up to them. They lost that game to Washington. Then they get beat in the opener, and it would have been easy to fold the tent and just kind of say, hey, we lost our coordinators. Woe is us. But they have bounced back from that game and the way they lost last season. It's hard to kind of pick it back up and go through the journey again. But they've done that so far. So I've been impressed by their mental and their ability to kind of push off the fact that they got a disappointing loss. Because you see a lot of these teams, they get that disappointing loss, and then they just can't get back off the mat the next year. So that's one of the reasons I like them. Plus, they're very talented. Rams. My thought on the Rams, Phil said Eagles have their number. At some point, the Rams have been right there. If it's not snowing last year, what happens in that game?
I don't know. Do the Rams and Eagles play the game differently if it's not bad weather?
That's what I'm saying. We have no idea. But, like, the Eagles won that game, and they should be given credit. But that game was not a blowout. The Rams were right there with you. You needed a huge play from Jalen Carter to seal that game. Otherwise, who knows what kind of conversations we've been having.
True.
This year's game, you don't get a blocked field goal, the Rams win that game.
Fair.
And that's 2 straight games where the Rams have played right there with you. Is the third time. Do you just say, we have their number. We're going to beat them 3 times in a row. At some point, I think these close games, one of them shifts in the other direction.
Listen, I totally understand what you're saying. I'm not dismissing it. I just feel like I'm still going to give you credit for winning those games. I'm not going to demerit you for not winning in a way that gets me excited.
I'm not demeriting them. I'm asking which team worries me the most. It's not a demerit. I'm not saying you did something wrong. I'm just saying the Rams have been right there with you, and I don't look at them as saying you have the mental edge over them. I think the Rams feel like they're knocking on the door, and they're right there with you. Now, they're very talented as well, and I think this Rams team is better than last year's Rams team. I think they're much better wide receiver. Adams and Nacua, a much better tandem than Cooper Kupp and Nacua. And now Cooper's very good, but I think those 2 guys were too duplicitous.
Yeah, the only problem for the Rams right now is they have some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and it has created a couple of interesting games for them this year where, you're wondering, like, could they have played better? Could they have – I mean, the Rams did the opposite of the Eagles. The Eagles went out and got 3 guys who helped their defensive depth. The Rams did basically nothing at the deadline. So – talk about a guy in Les Snead who has a history of going all in. Do the Rams maybe not see themselves going all in this year?
We'll see. I mean, that's a team that did make the big move in the offseason when they got the receiver with Devontae Adams. It changed the dynamics there. So I talk about the Rams. I think that team's better this year than last year. They would worry me. Seattle, just complete wild card here because they were good last year, Seattle. They weren't great. They were just a solid team, but totally different. Now they got Darnold. Does Darnold make you not believe in them? Because he's the reason why you didn't believe in the Vikings last year.
I think I'm more impressed with Darnold has done this year than what Darnold did last year. Because Darnold last year felt like he was a byproduct of the Kevin O'Connell offense.
Okay.
Now he goes to Seattle, and now he arguably looks more efficient this year. Like if you watch him, not numbers stat-wise, but he looks like he's actually more comfortable now than even last year. And I think the way Jackson Smith and Jigma is playing, it is a real testament to Darnold in the offensive play calling.
Then you've got the Packers. And I've been down on the Packers. Not down like I think they stink. I said this morning, I was on Birch 365, and I said, I think they're good. I just don't know that they're Super Bowl good.
The Packers have 2 huge problems right now. One is they lose Tucker Kraft.
That's big. But one for me is, even with Tucker Kraft, they don't have that receiver that you are game planning for because you're worried that guy can be by. Now, they do have a good run game. I think Love is, when he's on, he's on. He can be inconsistent. He can be erratic. I just don't think they have that game-breaking wide receiver that the Rams have, that Detroit has, that, quite frankly, Seattle has.
And that's where I worry about the Packers, which is not that I'm worried about them being the Eagles. I think there's going to be a lot of questions moving forward about this team, this coaching staff. If they don't make a deep playoff run, you could be talking about a team that went all in on Micah Parsons, can't even make a deep playoff run, and now does that set them back for the next couple of years?
Guys, without looking, just asking, who has Seattle beat this year? Well, that's a good question. You look at what Seattle has done because they are
beat the whatchamacallit. Let me look it up. I thought they beat didn't they beat the Buccaneers?
They're 6-2. which has them in first place in the NFC, was everybody over there 6-2. They beat Pittsburgh.
Yep.
They beat them pretty soundly, by the way. They beat Jacksonville. They beat Houston. They beat Washington. So your answer, they lost to Tampa, and they lost to San Francisco.
Right, that was
so
a
their
shootout.
two losses are not – I mean, their two losses are to San Francisco, a good team, and Tampa, a good team. They really don't have a signature win. That's a fair point. Now, they'll play Arizona this week, the Rams coming up. Then they got Tennessee, Minnesota, Atlanta, Indy, the Rams, Carolina, San Francisco. So they got a pretty interesting stretch here.
They do. And again, the reason why I said I wasn't afraid of Seattle for Philadelphia goes back to the style, right? It's the idea that Seattle's style of offense and defense is not as big of a threat to Philadelphia as the other teams.
Matt in Sicklerville says the Rams worry me the most. Good all-around team. The fact that we've dominated them lately makes me think we're due for a loss to them. That's one of my things. I think the Rams have been right there. I think they've been right there, and they feel like we're just as good as you. We're just as good. Everybody looks at it as, we have their number. I look at it the opposite way. I feel like they feel like they're right there. And I definitely think this Rams team's better than the one last year.
Again, for me, I look at it as I still worry about the Lions way more than the Rams because it's the style of the fight. It's the fact that the Lions do something great that you have struggled against.
By the way, the Rams beat Indianapolis. That was Indy's first loss until this week.
Right.
They beat Baltimore, which, Baltimore right now is kind of struggling along.
Yeah.
They beat Jacksonville. They beat New Orleans. They beat Tennessee and Houston. So the Rams do not have a great win either. They've lost to Philadelphia, and they lost to San Francisco.
And don't forget, that was a San Francisco team that was injured at. That wasn't a San Francisco. It gives you an idea that the San Francisco 49ers came in style.
We're going to talk more about it coming up. Q Myers, the host of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN Radio, weeknights at 10 o'clock. You can listen to Q Myers right here on 97.3 ESPN. This hour is brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning. They're a trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation for generations. 609-390-3907 online, broadlees.net. We've got so much going on today. MKB, host of Trust the Mics. That podcast is out on all podcasting platforms, YouTube, and on the X platform. Check it out at Trust the Mics. And, of course, the Sports Bash live on a Wednesday has another chance for you to qualify for this year's big 99 Bottles party. We're going to be at Maynard's in Margate on Wednesday, November 26th. Listen for that. Cue to call coming up in about 30 minutes from now. All right, 329, Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Hill. You are locked into a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. Coming up, football at 4. Jeff Mosher's in the house today for today's football at 4. Eagles getting ready for the Packers. Michael Kasky-Blomé, 97.3 ESPN.com, Sixers insider, and host of the Trust the Mikes podcast coming up at 5 o'clock. And Josina Anderson is set to join us at 5:30 tonight. But right now, he's the host of Game Night, weeknights on 97.3 ESPN at 10 p.m. Hugh Myers is in the house for his Wednesday conversation here as the NFL hits the back stretch. We're at the double-digit weeks, week number 10, my friend. What's going on?
Yeah, man, it's so wild to think that where we are in the calendar when it comes to the NFL, and I'm sure you got this the other day as well. I got the email that said the credentials for the Super Bowl is open now. I was
Already applied.
I did too, but it's just like, wow, we're already at this stage of the game when I remember when the season was kicking off, and now we're talking about credentials for Super Bowl 60. It's wild, man.
So right now, here we go. We are not halfway through, but we're right around the halfway point. We're at that double digit. Eagles Packers is the game this week. The Eagles at this stage are the number 1 seed coming out of their bye. Which team would you worry about the most? The choices we gave the listeners: Lions, Packers, Rams, Seahawks. They're the ones you could vote for. Or maybe the Bucs, Niners is a write-in. Which team worries you the most down the stretch they come as we hit the double-digit weeks?
I want to still ride with the Detroit Lions. I really think that is the team. There's a few different ones, and obviously we'll see what Green Bay looks like this week against Philly. But Green Bay, they just, to me, I don't know if they have the consistency at the quarterback position. It just doesn't seem like they do. Jordan Love, sometimes he's fantastic, and everybody's singing his praises. Next minute, he's throwing the ball into the stands, and you just don't know what's going on with him. So I think that Detroit, man, I want to ride with them. I trust Dan Campbell, I believe, more than anybody. Trust the fact that they're a tough, gritty team. Obviously, they can run the rock. They can pass the ball. They can play really good defense. Aiden Hutchinson is that guy. There's a couple question marks on the defensive side of things when it comes to the secondary, but they're still working those out. I feel like that Detroit is right there. Seattle's another team that I really like a lot, especially after they make the move and go and get the speedster at the wide receiver position, Rashid Shaheed from New Orleans. I think that's going to really help in their offensive attack. So, but then I don't trust Sam Darnold that much, right? Because of what we saw last year when push came to shove, all of a sudden he wasn't that guy. So I feel like Detroit is the more complete team out of the ones that you pointed out.
So I want to get your thoughts on the Rams because a lot of our listeners are voting for the Rams. The Eagles beat them in the playoffs last year in the snow. They needed a Jalen Carter play to seal that game. They needed a field goal block this year. Both those games were in Philadelphia. Now, the playoff game, if they played, would most likely be in Philadelphia again. But do you feel the Eagles have their number, or do you feel the Rams feel that we're ready to finally get one on you?
I think the Rams probably feel like that they can get one on Philly, no doubt, right? Because everything you just mentioned, right? They've played Philadelphia tough. I still am leery about, injuries with this team. I still keep, and I don't root for injuries, obviously, none of us do, but I just keep looking at this team and thinking, man, they've got some veterans in some key positions. Obviously, the quarterback, I'm looking at Devontae Adams at the wide receiver position, who somehow he just catches touchdown passes. Like, he's not getting a lot of yards, not doing a whole lot of between the 20s, but once you get to the red zone, Devontae Adams seems to be that guy. Their defense is, I think, good enough to get it done. I just feel like Philly's about to kick it into another gear. I know I'm waiting to see what it looks like, and I'm still questioning what Philly has going on behind the scenes. A.J. Brown obviously didn't get moved. We talked about that before, that we didn't think he was going to get moved at the trade deadline. He didn't. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are comfortable with being uncomfortable at times with each other, and that's how they thrive. But if they can keep everything together, man, they feel like that they're in a really good position right now.
So the trade deadline came and went, and the Eagles didn't trade A.J. Brown, but they did get a pass rusher. Was the Jalen Phillips move a move that you looked at them differently now?
No, I mean, it's another guy. It's another dude that can, provide some pass rush. It's another guy that they can add into the rotation, which I think you need a lot of. I do. I think that's a really good recipe, especially for Philadelphia. You saw how they won the Super Bowl a year ago, right? They were able to have these bloodthirsty pirates, as our Freddie Coleman likes to say, getting after Patrick Mahomes. And so I think if you have a steady dose of the pass rush and it's coming from different angles, I think that that's a good recipe. So I've been saying Howie Roseman and the Eagles are that team now, Mike, that when they're on the phone, just hang up, right? Because they want something that you have, and you need to figure out why they want it. Right.
I feel like this has been a conversation for years. Like, how come people keep taking his call?
Right.
At what point is that going to deter him from being able to do his job successfully?
Right, exactly. Remember the Patriots at one point? It was like, hey, man, if the Patriots are calling you, don't answer, right? Because for some reason, they either want something from you or they want to give you something that might not be where it's at. So, I look at Howie Roseman like that now, man. Anytime he's calling and making a deal for anybody, you better re-examine why he's making that deal for that guy. What does he know that you don't know? I really respect what Howie does there in Philadelphia.
Q Myers, host of Game Night, 10 o'clock tonight on 97.3 ESPN, weeknights at 10. All right, so Eagles getting the Packers this week. Eagles are the 1 seed. Packers just lost that game to the Panthers last week. Lions in the mix there. Are you buying the Seattle is in this mix? Because they were one of the 4 teams, and believe it or not, our listeners voted for Seattle as the team they're worried about, the second most behind the Rams.
Yeah, I think Seattle's a real deal player. I really do, and like I said, with the addition of the wide receiver that's a speedster, I think that's just going to help open up things for for Sam Darnold and company. Again, I'm a little questionable when it comes to Sam Darnold, but that Seahawks defense is really good. And the funny thing, Mike, is there was a time remember when Seattle made the trade for Leonard Williams? I thought, and that was a couple seasons ago, I thought Leonard Williams is pretty much at the end of his rope, right? He's not really that guy that he was when he was drafted in the first round by the Jets or the Giants and then went to the Jets. I didn't think he was right there at that stage of the game, but man, he's been such a key cog to what they do there in Seattle. And so I don't know what it is about the water that they're serving up there, but it just seems like he is really taking his game to another level. I like the corners that they have there in Seattle. So yeah, they're definitely a team that is going to be reckoned with. They're probably in my opinion, the team in the NFC West that you really have to take the most seriously. Ooh. I think the Rams are definitely there. The 49ers keep winning games, even though they have a bunch of injuries. But I think Seattle right now, if Sam Darnold could stay the guy he is right now, if he can stay that guy, they're probably the team to beat in that division.
Yeah, I feel like Seattle, here's an interesting question that we've been kind of – last year you didn't believe in the Vikings because of Sam Darnold.
Right.
Do I now believe in the Seahawks because they changed from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold?
I don't, man.
Or is he taking enough of a jump?
No, I'm still, like I said, I'm still questionable when it comes to Sam Darnold, right? I keep being that guy that's just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I keep waiting for, right? Sam Darnold's playing well, and we saw this last year. And then when push came to shove at the end of the season, we saw him, drop some games and go kind of back to the Sam Darnold that we expected to see earlier in the season. So I'm wondering, I'm really curious, and I don't know the answer to it. Is he going to be that guy that takes the next step? Has he arrived, right? Is he really that guy that can lead this organization? Or when it gets to week 16, 17, 18, is he going to start to cave a little bit? That's the big question, and that's the only real question I have when it comes to Seattle. I think they're a complete team. Can they sustain their quarterback play?
All right, Q Myers, Game Night, 97.3 ESPN, weeknights at 10, looking at all the different things that are happening and what we saw. Do you like the Dallas move, or do you question the Dallas move?
I love the Dallas player. I love Quinnen Williams. Big fan of his coming out of Alabama. I was hoping that the Raiders were going to get him when they were picking number 4 overall. He went number 3 overall, right? So I love him a lot. Don't know what he does for this Cowboys defense, right? This Cowboys defense is really bad. Jerry Jones himself the other day said they're not one defensive player away from taking this team to the next level. Maybe he's putting more pressure now on Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator that, hey, you have no excuses. We went out and got you some more defensive weapons. But look, this is a guy that's going to help stop the run, which is what Jerry talked about. He wanted to stop the run along with Kenny Clark, who they got in the Micah Parsons trade. But they gave up a lot of assets to bring in the guys that they did. Obviously, Quinnen Williams is the headliner, and they don't really have a whole lot to show for it. Quinnen Williams is older, right? He's got a big contract that they're, that they're going to have to pay. And honestly, he's going to have to get a third contract sooner rather than later. So I don't know how much he helps the Cowboys, right? And I don't think this is going to make a difference this season. So the move itself for the player, great. For the team and trying to take the next step, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot there.
Yeah, I'm like confused on this. Like, if they are 5-3-1,
Yeah.
and they think this will put them in the division race or
Right.
firm up their wild card standing, maybe you're 3-5-1. What do you think this is going to do? Like all of a sudden
Sell
turn you into a
jerseys.
Super Bowl?
It's gonna sell jerseys.
Okay.
Jerry's gonna put another jersey up in the team store, and he's gonna have about 15 different colors, and that's what he's gonna do. He's gonna sell them.
Full disclosure, Q Myers used to cover the Cowboys, so you
Yes.
know that he wants to put those jerseys up in the rafters there, or excuse me, it's put them for sale up there. Hey, listen, I like the player too. Like you said, I like the player. I just don't know if it makes a lot of sense. How about Sauce Gardner going to the Colts? Does that make them a legit Super Bowl contender, or were they already one?
I think that they were already at least a really good playoff team. Like, I don't know if they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but what this move tells me, and I do like Sauce Gardner a lot, I think it's really good to have him go from the Jets to the Colts, and it gives them a legit guy who can follow a number one wide receiver, in my opinion. But the other part of this, Mike, and this is probably the most important part, is you're saying that Daniel Jones is your guy. Right? You're saying that you don't need your first round draft picks in attempts to go get a quarterback because you have your guy. And I don't think Anthony Richardson is your guy. So now you're doing like the Giants did, right? Daniel Jones got the Giants to the playoffs when Brian Daboll in his first year, and then they gave him a contract extension. So are the Colts going to give him a contract extension saying, yeah, that's the guy that we're going to ride with. He's our franchise quarterback, because they pretty much have to now. And like I said, I don't know what they're going to do with Anthony Richardson. I thought he was a big loser from the trade deadline because he didn't get moved, right? He's still there in Indianapolis, and I don't think that his career is going to, resume there. So I don't know what's the future for him, but it looks like Daniel Jones is the guy in Indianapolis, and we saw what happened last week, right? A bunch of turnovers. And, I heard everybody say, well, if you, don't all of a sudden turn on him because he had one bad game. If you were on the bandwagon before, don't jump off now. And I was like, well, I was never really on the bandwagon to begin with. I was treating him like Sam Darnold. I was waiting for that other shoe to drop. And I'm not going to say that I'm right because it is only one game. Well, let's see what happens now. Now that hey, this is your team. You're the guy. They put all the eggs in the Daniel Jones basket. Can you deliver? We'll see sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I like your point on the trade says we're not to use our first-round picks to get our quarterback because we think we already have our quarterback. There you go, NFL Week 10 begins tomorrow night. You can listen to the game right here when your Raiders take on the Denver. We ended up going there, but she just left this morning. So she's on her way to the Grand Canyon. But she spent a couple days in Q Myers' hometown of Las Vegas. And your Vegas Raiders tomorrow night against Broncos. Now, that's a Broncos team that I do take serious. I like them to win that division.
Oh, yeah, I like them to win that division. I like them to win that game, right? That defense that they've got, man, that defense is stellar. They lead the league in sacks. They get turnovers. Man, Geno Smith better be on some skates tomorrow night. We'll see, but he better be on some skates to get away from that pressure.
All right. Well, she won some money out there, too, by the way.
Nice. So I'm talking about.
Saw a nice slot machine. Ding, 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 ding.
Hey,
ding,
Vegas
ding,
lets you win enough money to come back. That's all. That's all she needs to know. Vegas will let you win enough just so you come back and dump some money. Look, the desert is air conditioned for a reason. Just saying.
Q Myers, listen to him tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN, 10 o'clock with game night here on a Sports Bash Wednesday. Thanks, Q.
I appreciate you as always, my man.
There is Q Myers, everybody, and you can hear him weeknights here at 10. I like the point that he brings up with the Eagles. When you look at where they are right now, this Eagles team, okay, down the stretch they come. This team is 6-2, and we talked about the teams that, who worries you the most. You've got the Packers, you got the Lions, you got the Rams, you got the Seahawks in that conversation. They're going to get to face two of those teams. So we're going to get to find out if, in fact, those two teams Philadelphia, then they play Dallas, then they play the Bears. That's the month of November for them. After that, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders. I'm doing that off the top of my head, but I think that's the way they close out the season, right? Got the schedule right here. Here we go. Oh, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, Commanders. So December, you got 4 games and then the one after the New Year. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Hey, don't forget, you can vote at Mike Gill Show. Which team worries you the most if you're an Eagles fan? The 4 teams we gave you, they're posted at Mike Gill Show. Vote, vote, vote. We'll update the poll question throughout the day. Football at 4 in 15 minutes. Another chance for you to qualify coming up on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN.
Quinnen Williams is a great player, but he's going to be 28 years old next month, and he's expensive. So you went in on adding to a team that isn't going to win this year, and you added money, and you added a player who's aging and moving on from draft capital where you could go out and get a younger player and build from the draft. I didn't really make sense of this move. I know Jerry Jones had teased that they had a big deal, but I was surprised to see the Cowboys go in like this.
Michelle Spallman said that on Sportsmanlike. 97.3 ESPN's on Sportsmanlike. Moment of the day is brought to you by Whitehorse RV Center. Your fall closeout savings on 2025 to select pre-owned RVs. Shop now before they're gone. Whitehorse RV, your RV adventure starts here. I agree with her. I mean, I initially yesterday, you're like, oh, they went out and got Quinnen Williams. First round pick, then a second round pick. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, if the Cowboys end up making the playoffs, does this move even make sense? Like, even if they just get a wild card berth, does this move make sense? Because you've given up a first and a second. You're going to re-sign Quinnen Williams. Because you're going to have to come up with a contract for him in 2 years. Or is he going to Micah Parsons that whole situation? Like, I don't know what the big picture of this move is other than you're trying to make the playoffs this year, next year maybe, but then you don't have a second round pick this year and a first round pick the following year. I don't know. I feel like Michelle is right. I think Hugh Myers said, I like the player. I don't like the move. I'm seemingly in that boat as well. I thought about this yesterday when we were talking about this. At first, you're like, they got Quinnen Williams. They do this first round pick. Ooh, don't like it as much.
So I hate to be the guy who has to feel to defend Jerry Jones, but there is something about this move that I do like, and that is one, he's out of contract. He didn't give up players to be a million free agent. Number two, in many ways,
but real quick,
yeah.
One of the problems the Cowboys always have is trying to decide when's the right time to re-sign their guys. And they get to free agency, and then they don't know what to do, and they end up overpaying,
right,
and it ruins their cap.
So I will say this. In many ways, I still feel like this is the Marcus Lawrence. You had DeMarcus Lawrence, you know that line for years. Guess what? He left. He's in Seattle. I said, well, Seattle's defense is doing? Thanks for nothing, right? But still, I think this is Quinnen Williams. He's the guy that if you resign him in a couple of years, he's a replacement for what you lost in Lawrence. That's how I look at it.
I like the player, right? I like the player. I don't know if I like the modus of operandi that they took to get the player. You're like, hey, listen, the Eagles got Jalen Phillips for a third round pick. Right. He's got time left on his, he's gonna be a free agent. I'm saying, but Quinnen Williams, he's got time left on his deal.
Right.
But he's 27 years old, and you have to figure out when's the right time to resign him. The Eagles at least said, I give up a third. We can figure out whether we want to resign him on our terms. You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. I just look at it as I feel like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys are saying we are investing in the future. For as much as I hate having to get up here and defend,
they're investing in their future, but they gave up a first round pick to get a guy who's going to be 27. I'm saying he's going to be at the end of that contract. You're going to decide what to do with him. I guess if you think you're 2 years, if your window's in the next 2 years, you don't need that first round pick. Okay. You think that they're that close defensively? They're pretty bad.
I mean, look, I don't think they're that close. I mean, but at the same time, I like the fact the Cowboys did something. I like the fact that they were not just sitting on their hands like some of these teams, being like, everything's fine with house burning, being with a dog.
Sports Pass Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up, we have football at 4 with Jeff Mosher. We'll get his thoughts on that trade, Eagles trade, and more. It's next here on the Sports Pass. But first, right now is your chance. Caller 7-609-573-3776. Caller number 7. You are our next entry into this year's 99 Bottles Party at Maynard's in Margate on Thursday, November 26th. Make sure you can be there if you must be present to win. We have 99 qualifiers, 99 pairs of tickets. That means everybody wins something, including caller 7 right now. We've got club box tickets to see the Eagles and the Commanders at Lincoln Financial Field. We've got Sixers tickets, Flyers tickets, Phillies prize packs, and more. Caller 7-609-573-3776. 573-3776. Good luck. Football at 4 with the Jeff Mosher is coming up next. And Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Don't forget, we're there every Monday. You can stop out and see the show. And this Monday will be a preview show of the Eagles and the Packers. I'm Mike Gill. Coming up, Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast will be joining us. We'll talk to him about everything that the Eagles have done. They made a bunch of trades, 3 trades in the last week. And they have now kind of changed the complexity. I will say this. I don't think the Jair Alexander deal does much. I don't see him making a big impact at all. I understand they just they took a flyer with a 6th-round pick and just said, hey, let's see if Christian Parker, who was his coach in Green Bay, can kind of get something from him. I don't see that happening, but they go out and get Jair Alexander. The one thing that I thought was interesting, we have the audio from Howie Roseman yesterday talking about what Michael Carter brings to the Eagles. And I thought this might have been one of the standout comments of the entire press conference yesterday. Listen to what Howie Roseman said about what Michael Carter brings to the Eagles defense. Take a listen.
When you talk about Michael Carter, the guy has played an elite level inside, so that gives you flexibility there. Incredibly sharp guy. Joe Casper coached him at Duke. He could play safety, which is really important. I think that, we've always had that piece of a guy who could play nickel and also come into the game and play safety. Last year we had that with Avante. And so it gives that flexibility.
So, he's a guy they look at that can play safety, do a couple different things, and it gives them some flexibility. They have a guy that they have that flexibility with, right? They have that guy that kind of gives them that flexibility. Well, now they have another one. So what is the ceiling? How do they view him? Like when they're looking at Michael Carter, do they just look at him as a ho-hum? Do they say this is a guy that we have to play? He called him elite. He said he was an elite cover guy. I thought that was pretty eye-opening when he said that, right? When he said he's an elite, we have him as an elite cover guy. I thought that was definitely a eye-opener there when it came to Michael Carter, because my anticipation is that Carter comes in, and I'm not sure that they just bump Cooper DeJean to the outside. I don't know how they're going to handle that. But if they think that he's an elite player, as Howie Roseman said in that expository there, maybe they do think that Michael Carter comes right in and plays slot corner.
I think a part, though, is because of the other thing that Howie Roseman said. Because I want to play this part as well, because I think that the Michael Carter things as a standalone is a very interesting point, but I think what Howie Roseman said before he said that was just as important, because it kind of gives context for maybe the real reason why he said that.
What we're really trying to do is we're trying to be able to match up with all kinds of shapes and sizes at the wide receiver position in the secondary. When you have guys who can do that, it just gives you so much flexibility. When you're going to play different teams and the different types of receivers they have, the different types of tight ends, even backs coming out of the backfield.
So if you're talking about a guy in Michael Carter, you're saying this guy is really good in coverage, right? But so is Cooper DeJean, and so is Quinyon Mitchell, and so is potentially Makuba, right? Well, it sounds like to me, Howie Roseman and the Eagles are looking at this as not that Carter is coming in to take someone's job, or as much as we are adding him to a larger game plan, whereas we are going to start playing teams based on the matchups and less on who is necessarily like the apex starter.
Well, let's play the other bite one more time. He says, what we're really trying to do here is to match up with all kind of shapes and sizes. Let's go back to that one on Michael Carter.
What we're really trying to do is we're trying to be able to match up with all kinds of shapes and sizes at the wide receiver position in the secondary. When you have guys who can do that, it just gives you so much flexibility. When you're going to play different teams and the different types of receivers they have, the different types of tight ends, even backs coming out of the backfield.
So now he goes on to say there, when you talk about Michael Carter, the guy has played at an elite level inside. That was the part of the bite that I thought was the most telling. He said, when you talk about Michael Carter, the guy has played at an elite level inside. So that gives you flexibility there. But the other parts that he talked about, basically, you're going to have to play different teams. So are they basically talking about platooning players based on matchups?
I mean, that's what it sounds like, that they're saying that, and again,
I don't know how much that works in the NFL.
Or maybe it does because it hasn't been done before. Is the idea that Fangio, Howie mentioned that Fangio does have input, unlike what Fangio said.
Yeah.
And the Eagles' idea is Fangio saying, look, if we're going to maximize the players that we have to be in a position where we can throw out there multiple formations and multiple player, situational players.
What is let's listen to their expectations, why they thought Jair Alexander was worth acquiring. Here's Howie Roseman on that.
The relationship we have with Baltimore and being able to have honest conversations and understanding what he went through a little bit in training camp and getting back to health. Obviously missed a lot of time last year, and then just really doing a deep dive on him and how successful he's been, what we thought of him last year, when we were in Brazil playing them, and then for the first part of the year, and then having CP who's with him and getting to know the mindset of the player. And so I think when you talk about still a young guy, knowing where his health is at now, feeling healthy, feeling good, we felt like the risk was worth the reward with him.
So that's a lot there, but I think the interesting part is, we saw him in Brazil, first part of the year, CP, Christian Parker, the mindset of the player. And he says, sometimes in this league, you acquire information. Like this is some kind of gambling tout guy. Like, I have information, call this number, right? Like, when he said that, I was like, did somebody in Baltimore say, hey, listen, he just doesn't fit here.
Exactly.
Go ahead and take him. It will help you out. Like, is Baltimore basically suggesting this guy can actually play? We just don't really have he doesn't fit here. So my question would be, the Eagles play a lot of zone. Can Alexander be a part of that and be successful?
Maybe, because maybe the idea is that, he mentioned Christian Parker, right? Christian Parker was the guy who was coaching in Green Bay when Alexander was having some of his best years. Did Baltimore say to Philadelphia, look, he doesn't fit what we're doing? And then Howie turned to Christian Parker. And
almost like the reverse of Nnamdi Asomugha.
Right.
What you were doing in Oakland, you were really good. Then you came here, and he was
Not
a
so
man
much.
cover out. He was a man corner in Vegas.
He was also only on one side of the field.
Where were they?
They were in Oakland at the time.
Were they in Oakland?
They were in
LA?
Oakland. But the point is that Nnamdi Asomugha, boy, I botched that name. Nnamdi he was only playing on one side of the field, and he came to Philadelphia, and they were trying to make him a traveling corner, and it just didn't work. So now, to your point about, did Baltimore bring Alexander thinking he was going to be one thing, realize he wasn't what they thought he was going to be?
How could you mess that up, though?
Well, people make mistakes all the time. Look at Howie Roseman with Bryce Huff.
I'm just saying, like, you would know that what he did in Green Bay and would say, okay, that's what he did. You're going to bring him here. Listen, in this situation here, they play a lot of matchup zone, too high safety, cover four kind of stuff. So they rarely lean on a lot of man-to-man defense, right? They try to limit explosive plays. They play their safeties a little deeper. They try to keep everything in front. The corners are kind of off, or, not a lot of press coverage. So maybe they look at Jair Alexander as a guy who can excel in that role. I don't know. I don't have a lot of anticipation for that. But what Roseman said yesterday was, you acquire information. I thought that was pretty interesting when it came to
the other thing he said really quick is that he also explained why they've acquired multiple defensive backs. I thought this point was interesting as well.
First half of the season showed us how important corner depth is. We had a bunch of games here where, we didn't have our full complement of guys, and it's a position that you need to have a bunch of guys here for the amount of games that we're trying to play.
Yeah, he talked about how you can never have enough coverage guys.
But the key was, we learned from the first half of the year. That sounded a lot to me, Mike, where, how many times does Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan talk about self-evaluation?
Yeah, listen, now they self-evaluate themselves the second half of the year, and now they have to do it all over again because there's three guys really in the equation that weren't here before. Michael Carter, who he called elite. Jair Alexander, who
he suggested just wasn't a fit in Baltimore.
Correct. And then you got Jacorian Bennett, who you traded for at one point because you thought you liked him.
And then he got injured.
Yeah. So you're now going to have to reevaluate this whole spot. But, when you go back to Jair Alexander, Vic Fangio has a matchup zone type of situation. It's not a pure man, not pure zone. So does Jair Alexander fit into that mold? Does Jacorian Bennett fit better into that mold? Because that was what Hugh Myers told us. Yeah. The reason why Vegas got rid of Jacorian Bennett is because he didn't fit their defense.
Or does it go back to the whole idea where Howie says, the different matchups they have? Do they look at Alexander being a guy who matches up against certain people and maybe Bennett matches better against other people?
And that's what I was going to get to is, hey, maybe this week when their receiver's Puka Nacua, that's the guy. And then the next week when your receiver is
George Pickens,
whoever, right? Then we use this guy's better against George Pickens. Coming up, they've got games where you're going to face.
Well, you got the Lions with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have the Cowboys with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. You have the Bears, who they got an interesting combination of receivers with guys like DJ Moore and others. The Chargers, Keenan Allen, he's been an interesting guy who's emerged for the Chargers. Don't forget about the fact you have to face the Commanders again. And if Jaden Daniels is healthy by that point, by those 2 games at the end of the year, how does it impact if you have a Jaden Daniels throwing to a healthy Debo and a healthy McLaurin?
All right, Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, PhillyVoice.com is here to kind of help us answer some of these questions. As we were talking about before you got in, Jeff, yesterday, I don't know if you heard Howie Roseman, one of the lines that stood out to me was Roseman. He called Michael Carter elite. He described him as an elite cover guy, inside cover guy. And I thought that was a kind of a hot word for me that stood out.
Yeah, that's an interesting word, elite. I mean, zone corner is what I was told he really specialized in, because when he really had his best years, he was playing for Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, and they ran a lot more zone than Aaron Glenn. So usually when you hear somebody described as an elite coverage guy, they're talking about man defense. Maybe what Howie was saying is within his zone responsibilities, he's elite in his coverage, which is possible. I don't know, but that's the book on Michael Carter.
Right. So, I mean, if you let's just play along. Okay, you got this guy who comes in and right. Well, he says, that's what he said. I will put the full quote up on the screen so everybody can read it. When you talk about Michael Carter, the guy has played at an elite level inside, so that gives you flexibility there. So I was kind of thinking that gives you flexibility, which is what you have from the guy that was playing in that spot, right? A guy who gives you flexibility. So I'm wondering if they view Michael Carter as a guy that they can now utilize Cooper DeJean's flexibility in a different manner.
They could. And so what we know about Michael Carter is to work him at nickel, to work him at safety. But I also think, and it's something that we talked about on Inside the Birds, is that, and I think Howie was alluding to this when he talked about the Avonte Maddox comparison, is that they've typically had somebody who could play both of those spots. And, they typically have had someone who can allow you to play some big nickel or dime to match up against some of the better pass offenses in the league. And if he's really talented and he's playing well, why wouldn't you choose that kind of a package to match up against more spread out defenses instead of trying to defend everything in nickel all the time? If you have an elite, quote unquote, elite cover guy, then throw him on the field.
No, if he's an elite player and you can use him, I would like to. I'd like to see that, right? We would all kind of like to see that. I thought he brought up Jair Alexander. I want to kind of get your thoughts on what he said here, which I said it's almost like a gambling tout, right? He says sometimes in this league you acquire information, you watch everything, and you feel like, hey, the risk is worth the reward here. So I guess did they call Baltimore, and is it customary for Baltimore to say, hey, listen, the guy can still play. He just doesn't fit our system. He would fit what you guys are doing over there.
The first part of that, yes. I'm sure they had conversations with Baltimore about him beyond just what do you want for him, because Howie has had a very good relationship with the Ravens for years. Their GM is Eric DaCosta. He's been in the building for quite a while. He was Ozzie Newsome's understudy before Ozzie, retired and Eric became GM, and Ozzie and Howie Roseman always had a good relationship. In fact, I'm pretty sure they have houses on the Florida Panhandle very close to each other. I do recall Howie once talking about negotiating that Tim Jernigan deal, and that they traded. You remember they traded for Tim Jernigan. They flipped picks in the draft and so forth. They said that they sort of negotiated that, or the ideas was hatched on the beach somewhere. So I'm sure that there were honest conversations from the Ravens about Jair Alexander. I don't think that Jair, it wasn't that he didn't fit their scheme. I mean, they signed him because they wanted him to be the outside corner opposite Nate Wiggins, and then to be able to play Marlon Humphrey at the nickel and keep Kyle Hamilton in safety, but they didn't, so now they have Humphrey on the outside and Hamilton plays nickel and safety. So, to me, it's probably the conversations about conditioning and whether or not coming back from the knee surgery that he had, whether he was 100% at all when he was with the Raven, even if he wasn't on the injury report, was he at least healthy and good enough to go out and play and be good when he played? And clearly the Ravens didn't think he was, but maybe now I'm hypothetically talking, but maybe the conversation was, hey, maybe if you give him 4 more weeks, or by the time the playoffs roll around, he's better than the version that we had of him. Maybe that was the kind of conversation.
Did you get any thoughts on Jalen Phillips and how they're going to kind of, is he now their main guy? Do you kind of feel like he's the guy, and then the other 2 guys are going to have to figure out their roles?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be, because he's that good and he's big. He's 265 pounds, maybe even a little bit bigger than that. And we talked a lot after Zadarius Smith retired about how much lighter the Eagles were on the edges. I mean, Jelix Hunt, 250-ish. Josh Uche is listed at 220, so maybe he's a little bit bigger than that, 230 at max, right? Nolan Smith, is when he comes back, is not a very big guy. He's in the 230s. So, this is a guy who's built for the long haul. He's built to play the position, built to play a lot of snaps, he will instantaneously bring the best pass rush win rate among all Eagles edge defenders to the team, which is something that will be on tomorrow morning on the Inside the Birds platform. We have Inside the Data with Sam Finkel, and he had a lot of good data and analytics points on Jalen Phillips. So, yeah, that he's the number one of your 3-headed, maybe 4-headed pass rush.
Yeah, Nolan Smith, the practice window is open, so he'll be back at practice. We talked about him Monday and whether or not he would play. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to play in the game on Monday, but he'll be back at practice. So you have Nolan Smith, Jelix Hunt, Jalen Phillips. I guess Brandon Graham is your 4th guy, and then Uche, or maybe Uche is your 4th guy, and Brandon Graham is your 5th guy.
Yeah, that's probably more like it.
Right, because Roseman said on the crop of edge rushers, our best teams, we've been fortunate to be in 3 Super Bowls over the last 8 years, and they've been led by our front. And I guess the one question is this front now potentially with Phillips, Hunt, Nolan better than Josh Sweat, Hunt, Nolan Smith? I guess is Jalen Phillips comparable to Josh Sweat? Can he be better than Josh Sweat?
Yeah, he can be. I mean, Josh Sweat has played really well. And Jalen Phillips, I think we all have to see. I mean, we can all speculate on it now, but the reality is he's had 2 major lower leg injuries, the ACL and the Achilles, in back-to-back years. So I don't know what kind of impact that has had on him. I don't know if he's not as good of the player that he was 2 or 3 years ago because of it. He could be. He could very well be that player. And then, yes, he's just as good, or right up there with Josh Sweat. I wouldn't look at it as this year's edge rush versus last year's. I would look at it as this year's 4-man rush versus last year's. And one thing I noticed today, Brandon Thorne, you probably know who he is, right? He tracks a lot of the offensive line and pass rushers around the league. He had a list of the best win rate guys in the league, and man, Milton Williams is right up there. So that just shows you when you have Sweat and Milton Williams last year, that's tough to replicate, especially with Jalen Carter this year playing well, but not as dominantly as last year. So I think the question is, will their 4-man rush be as impactful going forward this year as it was last year? And that remains to be seen.
What did you make of the answer he gave on A.J. Brown yesterday? Did you get any kind of he said, I think that you're trying to be a great team. It's hard to trade great players. He wears the C for a reason. I think he went out of his way to say that. He's an important part of this team, of this organization. He cares about winning. He cares about his teammates. And I think when you're a team like ours that is looking forward to the opportunity to compete for a championship, you just don't get rid of guys like that. We feel very lucky to have him on our team and excited about the second half of our season. Is that a ringing endorsement of what are you guys talking about?
Well, see, that's the funny thing. I think Howie has grown and he's learned, and obviously winning 2 Super Bowls and going to 3 gives him a little bit more of a security about himself. The first 5 years in the league, there were times Howie would just straight up BS people. And if you asked about something like this, he would almost say, I don't know why, I'm not going to comment, or I'm not going to talk about a player who's not on the trade block or things like that. But he knows the narrative out there, and he knows why it's out there, and he knows that there's truth to some of the narrative of AJ not being the happiest guy in the world. So he's not trying to sugarcoat that, but he is trying to tell you. So he's not trying to deny that there might have been conversations or speculation about it. But what he's basically saying, and I think he's right on this, is that what benefit is it to the Eagles winning a Super Bowl to have AJ Brown not on the team? Yeah. So it's not necessarily a ringing endorsement that he'll be with the team in 2026. I can't tell you that. I don't know. I want to see how the rest of the year shakes out. But to me, I never really thought that he was going to be traded this year because it goes against what they're trying to accomplish.
I agree with that right there. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, PhillyVoice.com. Coming out of this, they're going to play this Packers team. We've been asking our listeners to vote which team worries you the most in the NFC race right now. Packers, Lions, Rams, Seahawks. Packers only getting 5% of the vote right now. Where do you think they should be on that list?
You know why they're only getting 5% of the vote? It goes into one of your favorite sayings. Everybody only remembers what they saw last, and what everybody saw last was the Packers losing at home to an okay Carolina Panthers team, right? So now all of a sudden they're not fearsome. But listen, that's a team that has a lot of talent. They can absolutely win the game. They're good. They're a little bit banged up. Jacobs has been banged up, and of course Golden hurt, and losing Tucker Kraft really is a big loss for them. And in fact, I'm a little surprised that they went all in on Micah Parsons, but then didn't try to go get themselves like a David Njoku at the trade deadline to continue to be all in. I know it's not the Packers style to make a whole lot of headline splashy moves, but if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, I feel like it just got harder by losing Kraft because he's that good of a tight end. So, but they're a good team. They have a good coach who has a good feel for the game and good play calling. And every time they've played the Eagles, it's been pretty close. The game in Brazil was close. The playoff game was close. I mean, they tend to be some kind of ugly. In fact, at the Brazil game, weren't they leading after the first quarter? Because Jalen had 2 interceptions early, and then I think the Eagles had to come back in that game. So I expect a pretty tough game. The Packers seem to play to the level of their opponent. So the opponent on Monday night is going to be a really good one.
Moshe, we'll get you out on this. The Cowboys made a trade. They get Quinnen Williams. They traded a first-round pick in 2027, a pick in 2026, which is a second-round pick. They're 3-5-1. Do you like the move for Dallas?
No, I don't, because we talked about this a little bit through text yesterday. I thought both the Cowboys and the Colts took Kyle Schwarber 2023 type swings where you're going for the fences, but there's a good chance you're going to strike out also, because I just don't understand if they feel knee jerk is what I'm saying. They gave up a lot of really good future assets to win now when I'm not sure both teams could afford to sacrifice those future assets to win now. If you're looking at the Cowboys, you get a great player in Quinnen Williams, no doubt about it, right? But he's in his second contract already. And you just gave up a first-round pick and a second-round pick. So you're hoping to get like 3 to 4, maybe 5 good years out of Quinnen Williams. But this year, to me, and I know they don't think this way, they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. So this year is already a wash on it. And you gave up a first-round pick. They draft well in the first round outside of Mozzie Smith. They've drafted well. That's like a guy that you want to have around for 6 or 7 years at least, making an impact, along with a second-round pick who could be a starter and play at a starting level for you, maybe a really good one like a Cooper DeJean type player, and give you 5, 6, or 7 years. So they gave up too much to get a guy who's going to help one part of their defense, right, for the next 3 to 4 years. But are they going to be good enough? Their quarterback makes a ton of money. He's getting old and he's always hurt. Like, they might need a quarterback in a year or two. So I just thought that was, I just didn't see the sense in it. I think they view themselves now as instant contenders, and I don't, for the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got Jadeveon Clowney, who I think is on the back nine, Logan Wilson, who got benched by a team that's defense is pretty horrendous.
Right.
So that's the two, they brought Clowney in early in the season, then Logan Wilson.
Their secondary is a mess.
To me, there's too many good teams for them to even make the wild card this year.
Yeah.
I don't even see them as a wild card team in this season.
I mean, maybe they're in better shape for it. I have to check. But like you're saying, there's a lot of good NFC teams.
Yeah.
You mentioned
maybe they think the West teams just beat each other up down the stretch. They got to play each other, and the Seahawks full. I don't know. We were looking at this earlier. The Seahawks haven't really beat a good team this year. The Rams haven't beat a good team this year either. That being said, Dallas, come on.
Whoa. The Rams haven't beaten a good team this year?
They don't really have a standout.
Did they not beat the Colts? Did they?
They did beat the Colts. Yes, they did beat the Colts.
That's a pretty good win, Mike.
Well, I guess I'm trying. If I'm thinking like teams that came into the season with high expectations, the Colts were a team that I don't think. But the Colts is their best win. They beat a banged up Baltimore team, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Tennessee, and Houston.
Yeah, I mean, going by your expectations going into the year, beating the Ravens would cancel out the fact that the Colts weren't considered good. I mean, they beat the Ravens. I think they're pretty good because they're very balanced.
I like the Rams.
Good defense, and they made a great trade, by the way, like a really sneaky good trade from McCreary that gives them some really good back end depth and optionality. But but don't forget the Cowboys lost to the Panthers, right? And the Panthers are a team that could sneaky win 7 or 8 games now. So the tiebreaker, they lose that.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I just think there's too many teams ahead of them, and this trade I don't think puts them in the division race. To me, if they're 5-3-1, this trade makes a little bit more sense. 3-5-1, I'm like, it doesn't do enough for me to give away a first-round pick and a second-round pick. He's Jeff Mosher. We'll do more, of course, all week long on Football at 4 as the Eagles get ready for the Green Bay Packers. And Mosher will be on Monday to preview that matchup between the Eagles and the Packers. We're going to be live at the Fanatics Sportsbook, which brings you Football at 4 every day right here on the Sports Bash. Often imitate it, never duplicate it, Jeff.
You got it, Mike. Thank you. Take care.
See you, buddy. All right, there you go. Jeff Mosher, and you can read him over at phillyvoice.com. All right, when we come back, we got a fun edition of the Nuggets today. Nick Earnshaw joins me for another edition of Nick's Nuggets. They're coming up next here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers Cavs tonight on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at 7 o'clock. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for Sixers basketball, 97.3 ESPN. Not going to lie, disappointing game last night. Lost by the Sixers in Cleveland, Chicago. Now back-to-back against a really good Cleveland team. Could have been 6-1. Now all of a sudden you're staring at 5-3 down the barrel, Earnshaw. Nicky Nuggets is here. Let's bring in today's edition of Nick's Nuggets.
Yeah, the Bulls at the top of the standings now, 6-1 last night, and just the NBA in general. No lead is safe anymore. A 20-point lead, not safe. A 24-point lead, not safe. They're just not safe anymore. So, like, I am going to go into every game this season cautiously optimistic when they get a 20-point lead, because that's just the nature of the NBA, the three-point shot, all of that, Mike. You saw it all on display last night, and unfortunately, a rough one for the coming down the stretch, the last 5 minutes or so. Just not great from the Sixers at all. But hey, those games are going to happen throughout the year. Now it's the second game of back-to-back. You face the Cavs tonight. No Embiid, no McCain, etc. No Barlow, no George. So you're going to run with those guards again tonight.
Well, listen, last night's game, let's start there. I thought late, this is what, so I had a lot of people hating Embiid. He stinks. He's slowing them down. It's his fault, blaming him. I thought Embiid played poorly when he got reinserted late in the game. But I will say, when he left the game, they were up by 19 with 5 minutes left in the third.
Yep.
When he returned to the game with 5:39 left in the fourth, they were only up by 7. They got outscored 32-20 when he was not out there for that stretch there. They were having trouble scoring without him. So what I'll say is this, though. He got shots in the last 5 minutes that he normally takes and normally makes. A little 9-foot jumper here, a 14-footer there. He just wasn't making them. Now, I thought he had a bad possession on a 3, where like a fadeaway 3. That was terrible.
Yeah,
he turned the ball over at one point, which, happens to him from time to time. But they were up by 19 with Joel playing a lot of that first half, and he was a big part of that first half where they built the lead to 19. But I don't think he played well late in the game, but I will say they were not playing well without him for that stretch.
No, and listen, people are going to complain, things slow down when Embiid's in the game. Well, when they get to the postseason, what happens? Things slow down. I want that guy on my team. What is it, November 5th today? I mean, let's relax here, okay? It's November 5th. A lot of basketball left. They played well to start the year. That's a tough one. You're on the road, first game of the back-to-back. You're not going to have them tonight. You're going to have to win in different ways. And, I think for the Sixers, looking at last night, Embiid, without him, they just didn't play well. And they've had trouble in the third quarter, especially come out of halftime throughout a couple of these games during the regular season so far this season. So, it's not shocking to me that they had a stretch where they were really struggling.
Yeah, listen, the offense, I think, caught up to them in the second half. These guards playing all these minutes, and I think you saw a little bit more tired Maxey. I think Maxey was pressing. I think Maxey took a lot of bad shots, quite frankly. We talked about it earlier. Minute 31 left in the game. He gets a rebound. I think he blocked the shot, got the rebound. Then he went 1-on-4, and it's like, hey, just pull the ball out, run some clock, get that shot clock down. If you do that, that game has got about a minute left. Instead, he goes 1-on-4, tries to get a layup, doesn't make it, back down the other end. They come and I think they ended up making it a 1-point game. So I didn't like the step back 3 that he took. I thought a bad decision there. So I thought he had a couple of forced layups where he just went up to the basket in a pile of defenders. So I thought Maxey pressed a little bit in the fourth quarter late in that game. And look, if we're talking about, it's his team now, I don't like some of the decisions he made if this is his team late in the game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There was some bad shot selection. They just didn't play well towards the end last night, and they struggled throughout a little bit of third quarter, fourth quarter as well, and then down the stretch they let the Bulls come back, and the Bulls have played good basketball this season, so you can't do that against a really good team. All right, let me get into the Nuggets. I want to start with the Philadelphia Eagles, nugget number 1, and I went back, listened to the Howie Roseman press conference, and one little nugget stood out to me, and that is when Howie Roseman invoked Vic Fangio's name and talking about how much say he has in decisions. Take a listen.
That would not be fair to say that his influence is minuscule. We talk a lot about a lot of things, but I'd say there's a lot of trust, and I think that he's got a lot of trust, just like I got a lot of trust for him and what he's doing, and so I feel fortunate to have that relationship with him.
So I think that's very important, especially with all the defensive moves have been made, that clearly Vic has an influence on Howie. Before, it always felt like, right, Howie's making these decisions, him and Lurie at the top. Well, Vic clearly has a say, and, everyone wants to say that Sirianni is kind of a puppet in a sense to Howie and Lurie, but Vic has a say in this defense, and he's going to want players that fit his scheme. So I wouldn't be shocked if he had a ton of influence on these guys coming in, especially obviously the Jalen Phillips one, because he coached him before. I thought that was very interesting from Howie yesterday, to let everyone know, hey, Vic does have a ton of influence.
Yeah, I don't, he said minuscule. I do think that Howie certainly asked him, hey, here's some guys we can go get. This is what we would have to give up to get these guys. Which one of these guys do you think, where's the cutoff for you? Well, Howie, if we got Jalen Phillips, that'd work for me. I don't need you to give up 3 first-round picks to go get Myles Garrett. Jalen Phillips works fine. I definitely think that kind of conversation was had when all these trades start to wind. Hey, I could go get Trey Hendrickson. I could go get Myles Garrett. And he lays them all out. Which guy do you think works best for what you need and this defense has right now?
Yeah, and what's fascinating? I saw a graphic just the other day of Philadelphia Eagles and where they started their careers. The only 2 starters on defense that started their careers elsewhere are Jalen Phillips and Zach Bond. Everybody else was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and that says a lot about the way they go about their business in developing guys, keeping guys around, and that the fact that Phillips and Bond are really the only 2. I mean, you look at Ajomo, Davis, Carter, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, Blankenship, Makuba, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. You go down the list, that's a ton of guys who have all started their career with the Eagles, and they haven't had to go outside too much for the most part.
Which is a total change from where they used to be when people wanted Roseman fired because they constantly kept failing. And a lot of those picks were like wide receivers that didn't work out. That basically, you took Nelson Aguilar, and he turned out to be a good player, not a great player. Obviously, Jalen Reagor was a total busteroni, and there was other great receivers in that draft that you could have had instead of Reagor. They took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He didn't work out. No. So you had some higher profile misses in that little section of the Howie Roseman era there, but they have hit on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, there's not really a bust on defense that you can think of. Every guy they have drafted on defense has real, and in the first couple rounds, obviously you take a 5th-round guy, a 7th-round guy, maybe some of them don't really make a big impact, but what he has done with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, you would say, is not a bust, but maybe he wasn't an impactful player that you thought you were getting when you traded up to get him. But Nolan Smith has been, he was the 30th pick right at the end of the first round. Jod Campbell, we'll see what ends up happening there. I think that story is going to be really interesting. How do they end up getting him on the field now? Where's his snaps going to come from? Obviously, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Makuba so far has held up his end of the bargain and has been a contributor for you. Jalix Hunt, a 3rd-round player. They have just kept hitting and hitting and hitting.
Yeah, and, it says a lot, the fact that all those guys have started their careers with the Eagles and they don't have really much outside help, especially even on the offensive side. It's really Barkley and A.J. Brown. You throw Dotson in there as well, but most of those guys, even on the offensive line, all started their career with the Philadelphia Eagles, which is very fascinating. All right, moving along, nugget number 2, and this is more of a macro nugget because, we started with the Sixers. I want to go back to the Sixers and Jared McCain. Not great last night. He's going to be off again tonight with the injury management as well. I wonder, because they have so much guard play on this team. They are deep at the guard position. Maxey, Edgecombe. You have Grimes. You have McCain as well. Is one of those guys, either McCain or Grimes, are they expendable possibly at the deadline? We know that they have struggled on the defensive side, getting back in transition. They lack defense a little bit because of the size and playing those 3-guard sets. Is one of those guys, maybe McCain, are they expendable at the deadline to help bolster the roster? And could they move on from one of those guys?
Well, it's obviously either Grimes or McCain. You're not trading Maxey. You're not trading Edgecombe. So it comes down to the two guys there. Do you find that there's too many of them? Are they duplicitous? Can I fit all four? Last night, 39 minutes from Maxey, 38 minutes from Edgecombe, 30 minutes from Grimes, 15 from McCain. Now, McCain is easing his way back. He's not even playing tonight on a back-to-back. So that tells you with the knee injury he has, they're watching his minutes too. I think all four can exist together. You got to get Maxey and Edgecombe's minutes down to that 32 area. So you cut 6 off Maxey or 7 off Maxey from last night, 6 off Edgecombe. That's an extra 13 minutes that maybe slide over to McCain once he's into the groove here. But I think that all four of those guys. Now, if you're trying to trade one of them, Grimes obviously is a free agent at the end of the year. He's got that weird, the qualifying deal he ended up accepting. So he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. Is he a guy that you could trade to a team that's a contender that just says, hey, we'll take the rental player? Maybe. I don't think they want to trade Jared McCain, but could you get more value for Jared McCain?
Just recently, too.
Yes, but could you get more value for Jared McCain? The problem is, how much is he going to play between now and the trade deadline? Is he going to get a full, brigade of minutes? I don't know. I think it's more likely that all four guys will be here the rest of the way because, quite frankly, you're looking at this team now as, hey, you're going to be a playoff team, maybe a top 5 playoff team. You want to be trading guys away? Probably not.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder because of how deep they are at that position, right?
They're not at full strength yet. Embiid is not where he wants to be. Paul George is not here. McCain is not at full strength. Trendon Wofford is still, he's got a minute restriction as well. So they got 4 really key guys, Embiid, George, McCain, Wofford, who are really not where they want to be yet.
No, and Barlow's been out, who looked promising in the first couple of games, right, where he was getting a lot of offensive boards and making his presence felt on that end. But, yeah, it just makes you wonder. It was just a thought-provoking nugget because it's like, all right, when they do get everybody back and, they're in the full swing of things and when the time comes around, do they need to elevate the roster? Do they need to add some size, some length on the defensive end? It makes you wonder because they have all those guards, could they get value there for one of them? It just makes you think, especially with where they're at right now. Obviously, a lot of time left, a lot of time to get these guys back in the rotation and figure out how you're going to utilize them, and that's a big job for Nick Nurse. But you always want to add and tinker with the roster, especially the Sixers. If you want to make a run defensively, hasn't been amazing. So that's something I thought. I wonder if they could move one of these guards if they needed to.
Yep, and they got to get once they get George back, I wonder whose minutes kind of get cut into there. I think that Barlow's on a 2-way deal, so that's going to be interesting to see that he'll be with. He'll be back, I guess, maybe this weekend. Jabari Walker, those guys are guys that they're both on 2-way deals. So you got to figure out how much because I think you can only use them for 50 games.
Yeah, I think you're right on that.
So they'll be splitting time with the Blue Coats.
Yep. They'll be down in Delaware with the Coats. All right, Mike, before I get out of here, I know we're about to wrap up, but Harrison Bader opting out of his contract. In or out on Bader? Do you think he comes back? Not do you want him back? Do you think he comes back?
Tough one, man. He's a tough one. We talked about this with McGarry earlier. They need a center fielder. Even if Bader is the player that he was before he got here, which is like a 240 player, just like a middle-of-the-road player, but the defense that he plays, is that better than what you've had before? but how much do you want to pay for that? You've been getting really good defense and low offense with Johan Rojas. Do you want to take a shot? But how much are you going to pay? $20 million a year for Harrison Bader? 17? I don't know what kind of contract he's looking to get, but he got paid $10 million. He opted out, so he obviously wants 12, maybe $14 million a year. That's a tough one. Just to say, hey, we might get a 240 hitter who plays really good defense. Well, I had Johan Rojas doing that.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Oh, I can't wait for the hot stove to really get going here.
Oh, but did you see what came out today? See what came out today?
Which news? Which news today? What news? Which one?
Philly's spring training schedule.
Oh, I did see that. I did see it. I didn't get to take a look at the full thing. I know you're chomping at the bit to get down there. I know you are.
By the way, first game, February 21st in Dunedin against the Blue Jays. They're going to play an exhibition game against WBC Team Canada, and their prospects are going to have a spring breakout game against the Blue Jays on March 21st. But yes, the Phillies spring training first game in Dunedin, February 21st. Maybe Doug and I will go down there and get ourselves a meatball sandwich at the VFW right across the street from TD Bank Stadium.
Oh, I know you're chomping at the bit. We're getting close. Love baseball season. We'll get there when we get there.
I missed it.
I know. It'll be back soon. All right, Mike. There you go. There's the Nuggets.
That's the Nuggets today. Thanks, Nick. And, of course, Nuggets is back tomorrow here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget Sixers Cavs tonight. You can catch all the action. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for Sixers basketball, 97.3 ESPN. Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll talk more about what the Sixers' problems were last night, and is it something that's going to be perpetual moving forward? Our Sixers insider, Michael Kasky-Blomain, joins me on the other side. But first, I need caller 7 right now, 609-573-3776. Caller number 7, you're entered for this year's 99 Bottles party, which means you've already won a pair of tickets. Which pair of tickets is it? You must be present to win to find out at Maynard's in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue. It's our biggest party of the year. 99 qualifiers, 99 pairs of tickets. That means we got 99 winners. Yes, what can you win? I'm glad you asked. How about Club Box ticket to see the Eagles and Commanders game? How about Sixers tickets? How about Flyers tickets? How about Phillies prize packs? How about concert tickets? How about tickets at other area events and shows from all over South Jersey and Philly? It's our biggest event of the year, 99 Bottles. It's all happening on Wednesday, November 27th at Maynard's in Margate. See ya. More Sports Bash coming up. Now we're like the Sixers finished that game last night. It's going to be a clunker. What happened in that game? And there's some big picture ramifications. Let's talk about it now. Michael Caskey-Blomain covers the 76ers for 97.3 ESPN.com. He is also the co-host of the Trust the Mics podcast, which is out on all podcasting platforms, YouTube, X platform, at Trust the Mics. And he joins me right now for a look at what happened to the Sixers last night down the stretch. They came. They're up 24. I look at it like this. I saw a lot of Embiid hate last night. They're up by 19 when Embiid left the game, Mike. When he returned, they were only up by 7. Do you look at Embiid as an issue in that game last night? Like to get your kind of takeaways on that fourth quarter, really the second half. They scored 45 in the first quarter. They scored 36 in the second half last night. Not good. And that game looked a lot like games we've seen over the years where they just couldn't find a bucket and couldn't close it out.
Yeah, pretty much, Mike. It was a tough one. It looked like they had that one in the bag. Obviously, in the first half, they were up by 24, I think, at one point. Maxey was on another heater, just playing, on another level, knocking down shots. But it's been the same story this season at pretty much every game, Mike. They come out of the halftime locker room, and I don't know what they do in that halftime locker room, but every single game other than one, 6 out of the 7 games so far this season, they have been outscored and outplayed in the third quarter of games. They've been outscored by 57 total points through 7 games in the third quarter so far. And that was the story to me last night. They started to really lose the momentum and let the Cavs chip away at that lead in the third quarter. And then by the fourth quarter, Cavs had the Bulls rather. Bulls had the momentum. They were making shots, and the Sixers were just stagnant and struggling. And I think it's fair to point a finger at Joel Embiid. I also think a finger needs to be pointed at Nick Nurse, both for the team's third quarter struggles and for the lack of creativity on offense down the stretch. We saw possession after possession that was Tyrese Maxey ISO, Joel Embiid ISO, no sort of off-ball movement, no sort of things to put these guys in positions to succeed, just a lot of hero ball. And to me, when you see something like that, a finger has to be pointed at the coach.
Yeah, I thought there were some bad possessions, and I know Joel was getting a lot of flack for, hey, when they put him back in the game, everything slows down. That's a fair thing. I thought Joel got some good looks, though, like some 9-footers that he generally makes. He took a 14-footer, a couple 9-footers. I thought the 3 he took was terrible. He turned it over at one point. But most of his shots, when he was out there, because they couldn't score without him. They went through that stretch when he wasn't there. They couldn't do anything. But I thought Maxey really forced and rushed some shots, and that was a concern for me. It's like, hey, Maxey, we're turning this team over to you. Either finish it off or take care of the ball or take care of this game. Some bad shot selections. There's a minute 30 left. He goes 4-on-1 and just goes to the basket erratically, misses the layup. Hey, pull it out, run some clock. You have a 3-point lead. So I look at Maxey as, hey, you're the guy right now. I didn't like the way he finished out that game. I didn't think Embiid played great, but he missed some shots that he normally takes and makes that you're okay with. Outside of the 3 fall away was awful, and the turnover in the middle of the paint was terrible as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I completely agree, and I think that's some of the concern that people have said about Tyrese Maxey in the past in terms of him being like an A1, 1A type guy on a team where it comes down to the clutch situations. Does he force some shots? Does he take some bad shots? Hasn't done it much this season, but that definitely kind of reared its head again last night. But at the same time, it's kind of hard to blame him when it seems like so much of the offense in that game and throughout the season has kind of been like, here, give Maxey the ball, give him a high screen and let him operate. I think he was trying to kind of get into that bag down the stretch. And, it ended up into some bad shots. The Bulls really locked down defensively. They were putting extra pressure on him. And at that point, yeah, you'd like to see him get the ball out of his hands, move it around, get Joel some easy looks. I think that was a tough thing for me. Like when you're struggling that badly to get a basket down the stretch of the game and you're Nick Nurse and you're the coach, put Joel in a position. You don't do it a lot this season, obviously, but put him on the block, get him in the post, let him draw a double team, draw a foul, get an easy basket. Like there was none of that for the Sixers last night. So I feel like the players kind of dropped the ball, and I feel like Nick by not putting them in position to succeed, both for Joel and Tyrese.
So he goes out, they're up 19. It's 89-70 when he leaves the game. Embiid. He left at like 5:22 of the third.
Yeah.
He comes back at 5:39 in the fourth. They got outscored by 12 points without him. Do you think that he should have been re-entered in the spot there? I mean, because a lot of people are looking at him and say he slows everything up. But were you wondering why he wasn't back out there? Like, what do you make of that whole little stretch there when he leaves at 19-point lead?
Yeah, I think what happened, Mike, I mean, this is just my guess from watching the game. I didn't obviously hear from Nick directly, but I think they were not necessarily going to put him back in at that point when he checked out in the third quarter.
I said the same thing. That's something
Yeah.
I said. Go ahead. Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense that you would have him sit, like you said, for such an extended period of time if you're going to have him back in.
He ended up sitting for almost like 40 minutes of real time.
Yeah, which is entirely too long, Mike. And then he's going to, get tight, have to warm up coming back in. So I really think that was almost a desperation move by Nick Nurse when he saw that the rest of the team was struggling to generate offense down the entire fourth quarter. You wait till the 5-minute mark, put Joel back in with hopes that, he'll get you some easy buckets. And I think at this point right now, where the Joel we have, where it takes him a little while to get going, he just was not able to respond in that final stretch.
Talking with Michael Caskey-Blomain from 97.3 ESPN.com. He's the co-host of the Trust the Mics podcast, a Sixers podcast. You can check out on all podcasting platforms at Trust the Mics on the Twitter X platform. And, you take a look at, they shot the lights out. They scored 45 in the first half. How did they kind of get away from what they were doing? Was it something the Bulls did, or did they just kind of like change something up? Because you're looking at the way they were playing freely. Embiid was out there for a lot of that 45-minute first quarter. So I look at that and say, what were they doing there that they can kind of build off of?
Yeah, the one thing I noticed coming out of halftime was that the Bulls really just stepped up the intensity. They picked up the defense a little bit, like beyond the 3-point line. They were putting more pressure on Maxey, trying to get the ball out of his hands a little bit more. And that's, like I touched on at the beginning, I feel like every halftime, other teams are making adjustments based off the first half that the Sixers aren't really making. And luckily, they've been able to kind of come back in the fourth quarter in some of these games. But when you're playing some of the better teams, like a 6-1 Bulls team, the Cavs team that they're going to be playing tonight, you can't afford to give a quarter away and be outscored by 10, 12, 15 points in the third quarter of games like that and expect to be able to come back in the fourth quarter. So I think it's a matter of sticking to what they did. I think they got away from the offense, and I think it was probably based off the defense that the Bulls were playing, kind of got the Sixers out of rhythm and into a funk that they were never really able to readjust from and bounce back.
Yeah, because, and then late in the game, it was almost like whatever they were doing in that first quarter where they were kind of making shots and everything, they completely reverted into like a two-man game, half court, just go back to Joel. And that's another thing. Hey, Joel, try to win us the game now. You haven't asked him to play like that the whole season. Now all of a sudden you're giving him the ball on the left block or wing extended and trying to have him back his way. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and everything you're describing to me is coaching, Mike, and I'm not trying to, rail too hard against Nick Nurse here. They're obviously, the Sixers are still in good position. It's early in the season, but I saw stuff that I saw last year where it almost has looked like he's not coaching on offense and he's just putting the guys, hoping that they kind of save him and save the offense and put them out there. If you're going to use Joel in that situation, I think he could have been put in a lot better situations to get them easy buckets. Thought there was ways to get Tyrese better looks that they just didn't do down the stretch of the game. So, quick turnaround tonight. Hopefully he can address some of those things and they can bounce back in Cleveland, which, without Joel playing, which obviously makes it tougher.
Yeah. And no McCain tonight either. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because McCain only played 15 minutes last night. He really didn't have a role. But one of the things I thought was Maxey 39 minutes, Edgecombe 38 minutes, Grimes 30 minutes. I feel like Maxey, Edgecombe specifically, those two are playing a lot of heavy minutes, and maybe late in those games you're starting to see them wear down when they need to be their best. McCain only played 15, but if you can, bring them guys back like 7 minutes each, McCain gets those minutes, maybe you get a better version of Tyrese Maxey. Maybe that's what ends up happening when McCain gets back here because he had no effect on the game last night.
100%, Mike. I think you nailed it. And we saw that. I think really you could physically see like Tyrese wearing down the stretch of that game. He came out firing so hot. It was his birthday, 25th. He probably had a little extra pep in his step to start the game. But by the end, like you said, it was just you could see it on his face and on his body language that he was tired. And I think, there was some rust with Jared McCain. We talked about it on the pod yesterday. That was to be expected. I think the 15-minute number is obviously going to bump up as he gets more acclimated. I'm not too worried about the shooting. Obviously, he didn't make any of his shots, didn't score. I think that will come along. And I think that's the plan that you described and laid out is exactly what they'll do. He'll be a guy that can eat into some of those minutes for that trio of guys and hopefully, take some of that workload off their plate so Maxey doesn't look so tired down the stretch of games like he did last night.
Yeah, because I definitely think he was pressing, and that step back three. I mean, he had nothing on that one. He airballs that thing.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on Embiid defensively. He had 4 blocks last night. Are you starting to see some signs that he is coming along defensively and the mobility? Do you like what you're seeing there? Or is that something that you're still a little bit worried about?
I do think there's a little bit of progress, Mike. If you looked at Twitter last night after the game, like you said, there was a lot of Embiid blaming, which is fair because I do think he was, kind of exploited. And I think the Bulls were hunting him at certain times and kind of forcing him to move his feet. But he did have a couple really nice blocks and steals down the stretch of that game. I think you saw a little bit quicker explosion off the jump on a couple plays down there. So I think it's coming along, but he's still not, close to where he needs to be consistently on the defensive end for him to be that anchor that he has been in the past.
Yeah, and then, you try to put Bona out there in that little run there. That didn't work either. I think the Bulls are a tough matchup with Vucevic is not a good matchup for Bona. I was wondering last night, how come no Drummond in a game like that last night where, hey, maybe you need a rebound late in the game. Maybe you need a little bit more physical toughness. I know Vucevic stretches out, and that's maybe a tougher guard for Drummond, but I thought Bona kind of got exposed in a game like that last night against that Bulls team.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. And I think Bona's going to struggle a little bit in games where it gets kind of slowed down in a half-court basketball like it did down the stretch last night, where it's like, less getting up and down the floor in transition and more having to play in the half court and in sets. I was a little bit surprised that there was no Andre Drummond sighting. I think he's been pretty good on the glass so far this season and is a guy that can eat some minutes. Obviously, I think we'll see more of him and Bona tonight with Embiid out. But Bona's going to be continuing to grow throughout the season. He's good. He's not there yet where you can just completely rely on him in every situation. So I think that Drummond will probably play a larger role tonight for sure.
All right, we're talking with Michael Caskey-Blomain. Of course, you can check out Embiid. Maxey last night became the second all-time three-point shot maker. I was pretty surprised to actually see that. That he's number 2 on that list. And this team, we talked about it on the first episode of Trust the Mics. 3-point shooting was a concern. Have you eased your mind, or are they just off to a hot start here?
I think a bit of both, Mike. It's definitely eased my mind a little bit. Just seeing Edgecombe being a guy that's capable and willing to do catch and shoot threes at a pretty high clip, that helps. I mean, Kelly Oubre's been shooting well. Maxey, the shot is obviously coming to another level. And then you add 2 other guys like we talked about on the pod this week in McCain and Paul George, both 2 capable guys of knocking down shots from long range and spacing the floor. So I think that when they're back into the swing of things and fully out there is enough guys on the Sixers roster to space the floor. So I do feel a little bit more optimistic about that aspect of the offense than I did coming into the season.
Okay. Do you have any optimism? Are you anticipating what Paul George might bring to this team? Because I feel like he's like a lost soul on this team. He never fit in last year. I don't feel like anybody even cares about him at this point, should they?
Yeah, Mike, and I think last night was a really good example of when they could have used him. Like, he's a guy down the stretch of that game, not only for the ability to space the floor and knock down shots, but like he can still get you a bucket if he needs to, whether, if it's an isolation, if he has a mismatch and he goes down in the post, he can shoot over smaller defenders. He can still take guys off the dribble. Like, he's a guy that can get you a bucket. And that's just offensively. I think the main part of him is going to come defensively, where you see Kelly Oubre is now kind of operating as like the de facto top defender for the Sixers in terms of the, other team's top perimeter guy. I think Paul George can come in and take some of that off his plate. So, he's not going to come in and score 25 plus a night, and he shouldn't look to do that. But as a guy that can really get a bucket whenever he wants to and be a run stopper like they had last night, I think he'll be valuable in that offense when he's back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then obviously the way that Oubre's going right now, it's interesting to see what they end up doing with that starting lineup once George gets back. Do they pair George and Oubre together? Are they a little too duplicitous for you? Would you rather go with more of a role player in that spot? How do you kind of see that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And I think there's a couple routes you could go there. I mean, if you're going for the most firepower, you do Oubre, Paul George, Joel Maxey, and Edgecombe. That's a great starting five. If you want to balance it out a little bit more, you want to do a little bit more rebounding. You bump Paul George to the 3, you start a Barlow or a Walker or a Watford, one of those guys in the 4 spot. Gives you a little bit more size, a little bit more rebounding. So I think you could go in either of those directions. You and I think, both think that at least the start, Nick Nurse will probably keep Oubre in that starting lineup at the 3, use Paul George at the 4. That way you got, 4 offensive weapons and floor spacers around Joel in that starting lineup, and then come off the bench with Grimes and McCain. It's a pretty good rotation right there.
All right. I'm looking forward to when George gets out there. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, because I was kind of like, I don't really know that George even matters on this team, just because, but I think you're putting so much weight on these 4 guards to try to every single night carry you offensively. And then Oubre, he's going to slow. He's such a roller coaster. So I do think having Paul George gives them a steady Eddie kind of offensive player. Is he going to be the guy who's a dynamic 27-point scorer like he was, in times in Oklahoma City, Indiana, LA? Probably not. But I talked about this the other day on the pod. 15 points a game from McCain last year, 16 points a game from Paul George. You're infusing 31 points a game back into this team coming up. I don't know where you fit all those points, but you got a lot of offense still to come.
Yeah, and that's a good problem to have, Mike, especially for this Sixers team that's struggled to score without Joel in the past. That's at least, one area that doesn't seem to be an issue this season. And I think Paul George, at least in the eyes of a lot of Philly fans, has almost become a little bit underrated just because of how poorly last season went for both him and the team. Think they're kind of associated together in the minds of a lot of people. Like, he was injured in and out of the lineup and things just went so poorly. I think he can still be a better player than what we saw last year. Like you said, he's past his prime, but I still think he can be a really positive, impactful contributor to this team. And I think, some people probably are maybe overlooking that at this point in his career.
All right, Sixers tonight against the Cavs. This is a tough matchup for them, and on the back-to-back too. Third quarter up 19. You're thinking 6-1. Now you're staring at 5-3 all of a sudden. This is a tough matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers here.
Yeah, and it's too early in the season to call this a must-win, Mike, but I am very interested to see how this team responds. I think we'll learn a good deal about this team tonight and the makeup of it after such a disappointing loss last night. It's a good thing you get a chance kind of to immediately turn around and bounce back. So I'm very eager to see how this team is responds tonight without Joel in the lineup.
Yeah, no Joel, no McCain, no George. I think Barlow's still out. What the heck did he do to his elbow? I didn't. That Saturday night, I wasn't watching when he got. And I said, "What did he take a ratchet knife and just cut his arm open? Like, how do you have a laceration that bad that you can't play in 2 weeks now?"
That's the thing. I think I heard someone say that it got reopened because it's on the corner of the elbow, I guess. So it's a weird spot that if you bend it, it could reopen it. But yeah, I was wondering the same thing. It must be a pretty must have had a run in with Michael Myers.
All right, Michael Kasky, Blomain, read more over at 973ESPN.com. Check out the Trust the Mics podcast. It drops every Tuesday on all podcasting platforms, the X platform, and on YouTube. Check out at Trust the Mics on the X platform. MKB, we'll talk to you, man.
All right, Mike, thank you.
All right, there he is, Michael Kasky, Blomain, our Sixers insider for 973ESPN.com. Sixers are in Cleveland tonight, and you can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, we got a lot going on still, including how close, if at all, were the Eagles to trading A.J. Brown. We're going to talk about that coming up with Josina Anderson, longtime NFL reporter. She had a lot of stuff yesterday that she was putting out there after the trade deadline when everybody was kind of talking about this. And I want to get her thoughts on how close she talked to A.J. Brown recently. I want to get her thoughts on where A.J. Brown's thought process is with this Philadelphia Eagles team. So we'll talk to Josina Anderson coming up on the other side. Plus, the Boxing Insider promotion is on Friday night. We're going to talk to the promoter, Larry Goldberg, coming up in about 20 minutes from now. It's a stacked card with a lot of area local talent. So if you're a fan of boxing back in Atlantic City and you like the local fighters, he's going to tell you how you can get involved with that at 5:45 tonight. More Sports Bash on the way right here on a Wednesday edition on 97.3 ESPN.
I think that when you're trying to be a great team, it's hard to trade great players. And AJ player for a reason. He's an important part of this team, of this organization. He cares about winning. He cares about his teammates. And, I think that when you're a team like ours that is looking forward to an opportunity to compete for a championship, you just don't get rid of the guys like that.
That's what Howie Roseman said yesterday when asked about A.J. Brown. You just don't get rid of guys like A.J. Brown. So how close were they? Did they even think about A.J. Brown? And what is A.J. Brown's mindset at the trade deadline with this season, with all the drama, all the social media postings? Josina Anderson from the Exhibit News Network, longtime NFL senior insider, tweeted out yesterday, A.J. Brown is not miserable. He's hungry. He's a player that cares about his team and his legacy. He wants to be among the greats. Every player should want that and continue to strive for that. So of course, he's going to want to feast. That's the energy. That is a difference maker. You don't get rid of that. That's what a league source told Josina Anderson. She is scheduled to join us coming up in a couple of moments because one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Josina, she covered the Eagles-Giant game up at the Meadowlands or MetLife back on that Thursday night when the Giants won that game. And I wanted to feel from her perspective what the mood was like in that locker room after that game. And did she think that the team was about to kind of hit a rough patch? Now, obviously, after that game, they go on and they end up turning the corner a little bit here to where they are the number one seed in the NFC. But how much after that game was she concerned about where this season might be ending up for the Philadelphia? Talk to Josina Anderson coming up on Sports Fast Live 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, another chance for you to qualify for 99 bottles is coming on the Sports Fast. Your cue to call is on the way. Listen for that coming up right here on the Sports Fast Live on 97.3 ESPN. Brian in Cape Bay Courthouse, TJ in Tuckerton are our latest qualifiers for 99 bottles, which is going to be live at Maynard's Market. And don't forget, 99 bottles every year, our biggest party of the year, 99 pairs of tickets. Every single person will win a pair of tickets to a sporting event, concert, something in the area. You must be present to win. And this is the way it works. You get there, you sign in. If you're the first person there, when we start the event, you'll be the first person that picks a bottle. You look at the sticker on the bottom of that bottle, it will tell you what you want. Flyers tickets, Sixers tickets, Eagles tickets, all sorts of tickets. So make sure you listen to that cue call. That's about to go off. And of course, you hear it, be the seventh caller at 609-573-3776. I think, when we take a look at one of the things she tweeted back after that game against the Giants, going back all the way to that, it was October 9th. It was that game that, remember, the Phillies played that night. The Phillies were still playing. And one of the things she talked about in the tweet was she asked Saquon Barkley, so there's video of her talking to Saquon Barkley, and whether or not Saquon Barkley thought the team was too predictable. And Barkley said in the answer, were we too predictable last year? He said, everybody knew we were running the ball last year. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. Nobody could stop us. So I'm wondering, after that game, did they kind of refocus themselves? Did something kind of change for this offense? Because, quite frankly, the offense hasn't been explosive. It hasn't been great. It's been okay, though. Do we feel that this offense is moving in the right direction? Do we feel this offense has kind of got its mojo back a little bit? And I think when we look at what she said yesterday about A.J. Brown, that she said he's not miserable. Well, by the way, that's what a league source told her. A.J. Brown is not miserable. He's hungry. And this is what I was talking about the other day. When we talk about his social media postings and all this stuff, I don't try to read anything into this because we don't know what's going on in his mind. We don't know what's going on in his head. We don't know how he's handling these things. But when Jeff McClain tweeted out what Howie Roseman said. She subtweeted that with what a league source told her, which is A.J. Brown not miserable. He's hungry. I think A.J. Brown suffers from this syndrome of, I'm a great player and I want to be great for you every single week. And if I'm not great for you, I feel like, I'm getting paid, but I'm not. You're paying me and I didn't do the job that you paid me for. Every week I think he wants to be involved in the offense. Every week I think he wants to be a big part of things. Now, I never really thought the Eagles wanted to trade him, but I thought what her comments were is that he's not miserable. That's what we talked about before. A.J. Brown has never asked to be traded. A.J. Brown hasn't said, hey, I need to get out of here. He's never really looked at it and said, hey, the locker room, we can't get along. Everybody just assumes he doesn't get along with Jalen Hurts anymore. This stuff, that stuff. This league source saying A.J. Brown is not miserable. He's hungry. He's a player that cares about his team and his legacy. And part of the legacy thing, I guess, could be numbers. But, I talked about this a lot with A.J. Brown. He's never been a big numbers guy. Like, yeah, he had those 2 seasons in Philly where he had about 1,500 yards. And those are big numbers, by the way. But he's not been like an 1,800-yard guy consistently. And you never really heard him complain too much about that kind of stuff. Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. I think when you look at A.J. Brown moving forward here the second half of the season, how much is this offense now where we are 10 weeks in? How much better will this offense be now that it has a little bit of traction? Now that it has a little bit of, they had 10 weeks to kind of iron things out. And then the bye week here. So let's get our 9-week sample size, sit in the lab during the bye week, and then filter out what works and what doesn't work. That's what I'm really interested in. And can they say, okay, we've been doing this, so-and-so. Now, I get it. From week to week, you could say, hey, this left guard or this right guard or this center or this play's not working. And you would think you can kind of see that and kind of filter it out. But maybe now over the 9-week thing, you got a big sample size of, okay, this works, this doesn't work, this works, this doesn't work. We got AJ the ball here. We got AJ the ball there. It worked in this capacity. Maybe we could dial up some more of that. Because the Eagles have been pretty good coming out of buys. They've done a really good job coming out of buys. And I think, all of the offense that we saw or the offensive issues that we saw early in the season, the last 2 weeks, right? The last 2 weeks where they've played Minnesota and the Giants, we've seen their offense get a little bit more consistency, a little bit more, okay, feel a little bit better about them. All that kind of stuff. Now, the one thing will be interesting is moving forward here. What happens with Cam Jurgens at center, right? I don't know that you can expect Brett Tote to come out and be Bronco Nagurski out there playing center the rest of the way, Jason Kelsey style. I think that's something if Cam Jurgens going to be healthy. What's the health of Landon Dickerson moving forward here? The Eagles had a couple of banged up guys on there. But remember, in the last game, and the Giants are tough because they're just not a very good football team, but they put 38 points up in that game. And in that particular game, Saquon, they finally got the run game going. Bigsby, they finally got the run game going. It wasn't a day where you needed a big day. AJ didn't even play in the game, and you scored 38. You had 6 for 84 from Devontae Smith. You had a couple touchdown passes. I really like some red zone design stuff from Dallas Goedert. You go back to the game the week before when they played Minnesota. They scored 28 points in that game. I mean, if a team scores 38 one week and 28 the week before, you're starting to say, we're talking about this team's offense. Well, you're talking about their offense because Devontae, 9 for 183. AJ, 4 for 121. 3 touchdowns between the two. Yeah, you start to feel a little bit better what they're doing offensively.
And don't forget about the fact that, to Josina Anderson's reporting, who was celebrating when these guys were scoring? When Jahan Dotson had that touchdown, when Saquon had his touchdown, it was A.J. Brown. there's the perception versus reality are not lining up. If AJ Brown is out there celebrating with his teammates, he's probably not miserable.
Now, I know Josina lives in the central time zone. I'm wondering if we got our times kind of crossed here.
Uh-oh.
Could be. Because she told me she was calling at 5:30, which is now come and gone by 10 minutes. So it could be 4:30 where she is right now.
It could be.
So apologize for that. All right, we'll try to see if we can connect with her. Maybe try to tomorrow show. If not, we always appreciate Josina. She did get back to me. We'll see if she touches base with me here on the Sports Bash. All right, coming up, if you're an area boxing fan, there's a great event coming up on Friday night. We want to tell you more about how you can support some local boxing and some local boxers. When Insider Boxing Promotions, Larry Goldberg, the promoter, tells us about some of the guys on this card, which is coming to Atlantic City at the Tropicana Showroom this Friday. That's coming up next. Don't go away. More Sports Bash. 5:45, getting ready for a fun night. Sixers in the back-to-back. No Flyers tonight. They won in a shootout last night. They're up 3-0, then down 4-3, then tied it up. And they won in a shootout. Trevor Zegras with the goal in the shootout. He's nasty in the shootout. By the way, remember when the Flyers could never win a shootout? Now it seems all their wins are in a shootout. Go figure. Flyers Preds tomorrow night. Listen on Rock 104.1 and the Rock 104.1 free mobile app. Sixers Cavs tonight on 97.3 ESPN. And when I'm looking at my schedule, no Sixers, no Flyers. Friday night, wide open sports night in the city. How about going to see some boxing over at the Tropicana in Atlantic City? Boxing Insider Promotions brings their next event, showroom, on Friday, November 7th. Larry Goldberg is the fine promoter. He is set to join us now to tell us a little bit more. A lot of local flavor on this local card. Larry, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Mike, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, man. So you're back at the Trop in Atlantic City, as I just said. I'm looking at my schedule. No Flyers, no Sixers. It looks like a perfect night. You got a pretty good card, a really good card with a lot of local flavor. Tell us a little bit about the card that you got over at the Trop.
Well, we'll start at the bottom. What we've got is 4 blue chip prospects. These are not local kids. These are fighters that are connected to Top Rank, DeBella, and Frank Warren Promotions. Like between them, they have like 150 national Golden Gloves type championships between the 4 of them. They're blue chip prospects. Nathan Lugo, Elijah Lugo, the Lugo brothers, Yoel Angeloni, and Ryan O'Connor. So I'm very excited about them. So these are the fighters that if you're coming to the fights, you will see them on national television next year. We've got locally from Pleasantville, Julio Sanchez III. He's making his return. He is from Pleasantville Recreation. He was a star of Pleasantville football team, or the basketball team. I'm screwing that up right now, and I apologize, Julio. His dad was a boxer and is the head guy over at the Pleasantville Recreation Center. Bruce Selden is making his 5th appearance in Tropicana. He's in his toughest fight yet. Against an 8-2 fella. He's fighting 6 rounds. Summers Point's Josh Popper is making his Atlantic City debut. He's been boxing. He's from New York. He's been boxing, in some other states, but this is the first time he's fought in Atlantic City. We're very excited to have him. Otto Wallin, who fought Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, who on the international stage, is coming back to Atlantic City for his bounce back fight. And then in the main event, we have Justin Figueroa is making his return. He's defending his NABF championship against Jose Perdomo. Jose is coming off of a big upset win about 2 months ago in New York over a 12-0 prospect. And he's been talking a little smack about Justin, and he's kind of looking to embarrass the local kid in his hometown. So it's a really good card. It's a mesh of local and international talent. And I'm leaving off, of course, unfortunately, from Berlin, New Jersey, Leah Lewandowski, who is 2-0. She is dynamite, and she is looking to become a big female star. So we have 10 fights lined up for the card on Friday night.
Yeah, and you can get the tickets for Friday night inside the Tropicana showroom at Ticketmaster.com. You can get your spot for this event. And you've talked about all this local flavor here. Justin Figueroa is 13-0. And then obviously you talked about Otto Wallin, who's been a guy who has fought all over the world. You talked about getting to fight some championship fights. These are guys, some looking to get back at the top of the card, others trying to get themselves and elevate to that card. So you're really getting a chance to see some local people make a name for themselves, and other people try to get back into the, to the top of the boxing card.
And absolutely, like I said, this is our 6th show at Tropicana, so we finally figured out, I think, the right formula for this market, and it's exactly that. It's a mix of the local fighters and guys coming, bouncing back, and the next generation of boxers.
Yeah, you talked about finding the right formula. Everybody's been kind of yearning and thirsting for boxing to come back into Atlantic City, and obviously there's been big-time championship fights there. Larry, do you think at some point, if this kind of keeps on building and building, that Atlantic City can work itself back into that world, or is this kind of the niche and kind of the world that Atlantic City is going to be for boxing?
Boxing as a sport is in transition. The sport that we knew, the system that we knew, is currently changing. They are looking to pass a new version of the Muhammad Ali Boxing Act, which is pretty much going to happen. The UFC's parent company, TKO, is going to be getting very heavy into boxing next year in a very self-contained way, much like the world of mixed martial arts has done. But boxing is going to change. I think that Atlantic City will always have a place in there, with shows like what I'm doing. But the national promoters seem to come here every couple of years, and it's Eddie Hearn came to town a couple of months ago, and he basically said, well, I'm here because Philadelphia wasn't available. And so I'm very excited to say that we're here because, we're local, and we wanted to build a local card and, build up some of the local fighters on the national platform.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, I'm looking over at my wall over here. I've got all the media credentials. When you get a night in that Boardwalk Hall, man, and it's the energy in that place, it is still awesome to think about some of the things that have gone on in there, man. And it's hopeful that, and you talked about, Figueroa 13-0, Bruce, obviously, Bruce Seldon 7-0. He's obviously got a legacy and a name. Some of these guys, they keep on winning and winning and winning. That's a great venue that possibly, but Insider Promotion is going to be at the Tropicana showroom, which has turned into an awesome spot for these fights.
Well, this is our sixth fight there in about 18 months. I love the Tropicana. I love the energy of that room. The bleachers are the best seats to see any kind of fights in Atlantic City. But Mike, my dream as someone who grew up here, who went to all those fights, my dream is to one day promote a fight at the Boardwalk Hall. I mean, I would love to do that, but it's the kind of thing where, it's definitely a lot bigger than, financially than for me to put on a local fight and, try to sell some tickets. So but my dream for sure is to one day do one of those big fights at the convention center.
All right, man. Well, Tropicana Friday night, as we said, it's an open night for the people out there. Get out there and support the local boxers in a local venue. Tropicana Showroom, Atlantic City. Larry Goldberg from Boxing Insider Promotions. As it's a stack card, the tickets are on sale now, and you will thank me for going to this fight. If you're out there listening, you're like, man, I want to go see some live fights. What am I doing Friday night? I just gave you something to do. Larry, thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
All right, there's Larry Goldberg from Boxing Insider Promotions. Josh, you've been to a lot of these fights over at the Tropicana. I actually, Friday night, looking for something to do myself. I wouldn't mind going to see some live boxing.
Listen, as Larry said, the venue has been absolutely amazing because when you have the people on each side of the ring, right, the way it's set up with the bleachers on the one side and the stadium seating on the other side, it's a great setup that no matter where you're sitting, you get a straight shot of the ring. And each one of these fights these are guys and ladies as well. Leah Lewandowski, who, by the way, Larry, you didn't mention it, but I want to add on. Well, she was a part of the Olympic trials last year. So she was competing for those Olympic trials. And she was somebody who was really, really trying to maybe make a name for herself in the amateur ranks. But when the Olympic trials didn't work out, she just said, you know what, let's just go pro. So, you're talking about men and women who go in there and they want action. They're not going to sit there and just go patty cake for about 5-6 rounds. And that's the cool thing to me about it, Mike, is when you go to these fights, you're not watching a bunch of people hugging each other. You're watching action.
Yeah, just absolutely throwing some haymakers. So good stuff. Friday night, Tropicana, Figueroa 13-0. It's his first fight in Atlantic City since winning the Super Welterweight Championship. So that will be a fun fight. I know he draws a great crowd. I know that that place is going to be jam-packed.
And it's crazy, really quick, because, he had to go to Texas to win that belt. You were talking about, you and Larry, about bringing championship boxing back to Atlantic City. So now he had to go to Texas to win that belt. And now you have a guy with a belt back in the city for the first time since 2011 when Shimon Alvarez, he had a belt years ago and he was fighting in Atlantic City. So it's been a while since an Atlantic City or regional alumni was in the city with a belt, walking around and fighting on a card.
Well, should be fun. Friday night, if you want to get tickets, Ticketmaster.com to reserve your spot for Insider Promotions this Friday night. All right. Getting ready to get out of here. Sixers tonight at 7 o'clock. Tom McGinnis on the call. But before we roll, I need caller 7 right now, 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Caller number 7 right now. You are entered into this year's 99 Bottles Party, our biggest party of the year. Yes, indeed. Caller 7, you're in at 609-573-3776. 99 bottles, everyone's a winner. 99 pairs of tickets. Eagles tickets, Sixers tickets, Flyers tickets, concert tickets, tickets to area shows and events from all over South Jersey and the Philly region. You must be present to win at Maynard's in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue. We'll see you there on Wednesday, November the 26th. Good luck. Caller 7. I'm Mike Gill. This has been the Sports Bash. See ya.